we got Baz in there. Yeah, I have to beep. It's just so I can see when we start.
I like it.
CIA agent, on the blacklist, and recovery for children, and many, many other things. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tommy, for having me. I'm excited to be here with you. So,
great. Before we get into everything, the first thing I want to get into is the recovery for children that you have. I think that's really excellent thing that you're doing. Now that I have a kid, I mean, and a daughter at that, I mean, it really touches me. What got you into that and made you start that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. 1993, you remember a little incident called Black Hawk Down? Took place in Mogadishu, Somalia. So most people are familiar with that part of the country because of that pretty unfortunate incident that took place. But prior to that, I was attached to a couple of CIA paramilitary ground branch teams that went in to do a number of things on the ground, southern collecting intelligence and reopening an embassy and a few other things. And while I was there, we had an attachment of Center Spike and a couple other people with us at our safe house. And it was during that tour of duty that we stumbled upon a couple of children, 2 girls actually, that were dressed differently. They had green T-shirts, blue jeans, aviator glasses. Excuse me. And we struggled with the decision to do something about our find, so to speak. I mean, we didn't really have any place to take them. Couldn't take them back to the safe house. And so over the course of days, we wrestled with that until we made a decision to actually do something about it and go find them again. I think, it's easy to accept collateral damage in any civil war, but that one didn't sit well with any of us. So unbeknownst to the agency and other people, it became another mission on top of a mission. So we rescued them, got them to an orphanage that was there. And when I got back to the United States, I still wrestled with the idea of missing kids. I don't know, something about saving those kids kind of did something to my heart.
Well, I think it's just being a human being, right?
I think you're right.
I would think.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny, in the clandestine service and you're running operations, you try not to be that to some extent. So when I got back, I asked... and
Baz, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Could you explain what the clandestine system is?
Clandestine service, it's just another term for the world of espionage,
okay.
CIA, spying.
17 more different ways
Exactly,
to say it.
exactly. And so, Tommy, when we got back, I started asking the question in America, do we have missing kids? Mostly to my law enforcement partners or people that I knew. And they said, yeah, we have about 250,000 missing.
Really?
I said, yeah. At that time in 1993.
That was 93.
93, yeah. So I said, well, I asked the question, what's being done about it? And I kept getting the same answer about federal, local, state, and federal law enforcement, which was, well, we have budgetary constraints, we have communication restraints between states, and we just consider most of them runaways. And honestly, nothing's being done about it, really. I mean, murder, car thefts, crime, like, homicides and all that are a priority, and kids really aren't. And I appreciated them being up front, but it still didn't make me feel any better.
So when these kids go missing, what are these people just a kid's outside on the porch and bang, they just yank the kid and take the kid to another country? How does it work?
It happens many different ways. The very first thing that I've come to realize over all the years is any kid who has a really bad family, because not every parent's a great parent. The kids, as my wife would say, they're either running to something or they're running away from something. And in every case now, up to from 1993 to 2022, one thing's been consistent is that the kids come from really bad homes.
So that's a common denominator with all this.
That's just one, yeah. So at that time, 250,000 missing, and nothing was being done. So on my weekends and my holidays, it's funny, I've been next to the agency from 93 to 96. I would go out and rescue a kid.
That's so cool.
By 96, all of a sudden, after doing this for about 3 years on the sly, I realized there was something bigger than overthrowing small governments. And I felt like I was being called, literally. It's one thing to do something you think is really cool and nice, but to be called to do something, all of a sudden there's a gnawing at your heart to the point that you realize that if it's only going to get done if you do it because you're going to do it right. And so by 96, I made a choice to leave a lifestyle that I loved very much and go do something that I believed was the right thing to do. And so I chose to sacrifice that and ended up, and there were many other things happening in the world at that time that helped make that decision a little bit easier. But so in 1996, I started the Association for the Recovery of Children, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization of former intelligence, military, and law enforcement officers that are dedicated to the recovery of missing, exploited, and sex-trafficked children in America. So I think to date, we may actually be probably the longest-running child rescue NGO in the U.S., outside of maybe the Salvation Army or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take me through the site a little bit in case, because you can donate, you can help out, right?
Yeah, you actually can. Nobody receives a paycheck in our organization. It's all volunteer services. And what we do in addition to actually rescuing children is that we got to the point where we realized that a lot of nonprofits that got into this arena were teaching awareness, but awareness doesn't bring anybody home. So we began one of the first courses on equipping people to actually go out and run child rescues. It's called the Fight Child Trafficking Equipping Course. And it's about 6 days. It's very intense, but by the time people finish that, they're pretty much qualified to go out and actually go rescue a kid. Now, there are a lot of things that they still need to learn and practice and work on, but we give them the tools and we teach them actually how to go out. Also, sometimes along with their law enforcement partners and sometimes independently to actually go out and rescue a child. We have to build an army. We have to, what's the term everybody uses, force multiply?
Yeah.
So we know that we're never going to be able to have enough people in our own organization. So we want to create more organizations to do the same thing, good organizations. And when I say that, Tommy, I say it because there are a lot of NGOs, anti-trafficking NGOs out there. They have great marketing teams. They make a lot of money, into the millions of dollars from government grants and whatever, and there's no oversight as to how that money's spent. But because we're long in the tooth, we're able to look behind the veil and a lot of times see who's doing what they say they're doing. And I would tell you, sadly, that our investigation shows that probably up to 60%, maybe more, of the NGOs that claim they're rescuing kids are not rescuing kids. Probably up to 60% of the aftercare organizations that go, we have 40 beds, maybe have 4 beds. But they said 40 so they could get money for 40 beds.
It's like the commercial you see on whatever channel, and the kid's there, and they make you feel bad and give it $10 a month, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then 3 years later, they're indicted for embezzling, $30 million of whatever they made.
Exactly. Yeah, I would always caution people to vet out organizations as far as they can to make sure that they know that every single penny is being spent for what that organization says it should be spent for.
Boss, how sick is that? It's one thing to do like with a dog, okay, give money for a dog or give money for this or whatever on those stupid commercials, but to do a scam about missing children, I mean that's crossing the line.
A lot of people cross lines. We'll get into that the rest of the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of organizations, three-letter agencies,
so
a lot of people.
There's so many other scams you could pull. Not
you could.
Fucking kids, Jesus.
Yeah, well, children are a commodity.
Yeah.
Particularly the ones that are being sex trafficked or the ones that are being used for organ parts or body parts. You're right. When you ask that question, it's kind of like this. Before you start caring so much as a liberal for the children that are illegally crossing the border, why don't you care about the children that are in the dumpsters behind a Planned Parenthood? It's hypocritical.
It just gets brushed under the rug. Brush under the rug like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, it's just whatever they want it to be for whatever given day, you know, their cause or whatever it may be. So with this, we have NGOs that went there a lot that go, hey, we can make a lot of money. And they're doing the same thing that the pimps are doing when they sex traffic. They're sex trafficking children to make money. And someone has created an organization to say they're saving children to make money.
Fucking sick.
Yeah. That's the world we live in.
And what I remember reading about that organ. They're actually taking their organs, and then what do they do?
They sell them on the black market, and they bring a good price. You know, you can sell. If I think my wife and I were talking about this morning, I think she mentioned that for one baby, all of their parts you can get totally close to $1 million for.
Oh, gee, dude,
yeah.
that's some shit.
So there's kidneys, there's livers,
Fuck.
there's stem cells, the list goes on and on and on. So the question, I guess, is when do we finally realize that our children are innocent and precious enough that we want to protect them
and put time into to figuring this out and to make a task force? Why isn't there a task force? You got a task force for...
There's a task force for everything. And
what's the bullshit we always hear? The green energy? You got a task force for green energy when this has happened how many times? How many times has it gotten hot, cold, hot, cold? You know, we're adding to
history, I think. It's always hot and cold.
All you got to do is look at history. It always happens. It goes up and down, up and down. You know, what the fuck?
Well, there are these task force. Every state has a anti-human trafficking task force. And it's been our experience because we don't really go undercover, but we attend a lot of them just to see what's going on. And they get together and they pontificate about trafficking, and they give themselves rewards and awards, and they meet every Thursday and have coffee and talk about the problem. But nobody goes out on the street. Look, we're on the street. We're downrange in the mess of this. We run our own intelligence network in the life. That's the term we use for prostitution. We won't disclose a lot of that, but we have ground truth. And we know who's actually on the ground. Look, if something becomes explosive, like some organization says, we rescued 3,000 children last year. Look, we do it. One child takes us months of investigative work to find sometimes and rescue, whatever. So I'm happy if it's really true that this organization rescued 3,000 kids. But that's so explosive that even the cartel would be chattering about it. Right. You know, I mean, and so
that's a good point.
We don't trust when we go to pull our intel. A lot of times we don't get our intel from the media that's already bought off. Okay, we don't do that. We go underground. We go to the people that are in the know, and that may be sometimes it could be listening to what the bad guys are saying. I mean, look. You rescue 3,000 children. You just put a dent in somebody's business.
A big dent.
A big dent, okay? That's a lot of money. So they'd be talking about it. And when they're not talking about it, we go, well, did it really happen? And then we do further investigation, and we realize that it didn't happen. Now, our job, excuse me, our job isn't to go after other NGOs. They'll get caught in their own lies. Our job is just to save a kid. That's it. These people will fall on their swords. But people need to be aware that there are people profiting on both sides of the table on children.
And what was it that Epstein, right? That was the guy. What was he really sucking? What was he doing? Sucking adrenaline out of kids?
Adrenochrome?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that. Here's what I know. I carry a gun because Epstein didn't kill himself. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So.
That's absolutely impossible.
Absolutely impossible.
There's no way that the cameras go out like that.
Exactly.
There's no way that there's not a lieutenant walking around. And guaranteed.
So Epstein he wasn't the big dog. There are people above Epstein, okay?
Clinton.
There's a Clinton. Yeah, who, by the way, was found guilty of 11 things before they even decided to impeach him. And then Trump was never found of anything after 2 years of Mueller investigating. And they still tried to impeach him. Something screwed up with that. But with that said, there's the cartel. And underneath the cartel, there's the gangs, MS-13, the Bloods, the Crips. There's all that. But above Epstein, there's the Vatican. And above the Vatican, there's other things. So one of our board members Ambassador Bill Wilson was one of the first ambassadors to the Vatican sent there under Ronnie Reagan, President Reagan. Love that guy. And Bill was sent there. Bill's not alive any longer, but I had conversations with Bill, and I think it's safe I could disclose this now, but Bill was sent there by President Reagan for many purposes, but one of those was to look into the trafficking and abuse of children by the Vatican.
This episode is sponsored by Let's Get Checked. Are you the man your father was? Recent studies have shown that men's testosterone levels are dropping substantially since the 1980s at about an average of 1% per year. Low testosterone can have all types of health effects. It can affect your muscle mass, memory, mood, sex drive, you name it. And yes, low testosterone is more common the older you get, but can affect men at any age. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Let's Get Checked. They're a worldwide leader in at-home testing kits, and their male hormone test lets you easily test your testosterone levels at home. You can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in a discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available to you in your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. These results are reviewed by a clinician, and a member of Let's Get Checked nursing team may call you to review your results. Let's Get Checked laboratories are CLIA approved and CAP accredited, which is the highest ranking levels of accreditation. So, if you want to test your hormone levels without having to leave your home, visit trylgc.com/MSCS. Special offer for MSCS media viewers. Use promo code MSCS at checkout and get 30% off your test. The link is in the description below at the top. This episode is brought to you by Fiji. More than just water.
This is not just rock. It's ancient volcanic rock that filters tropical rain, giving it double the electrolytes and its signature soft, smooth taste. It's not just water, it's Fiji water.
Again, that's fijiwater.com/MSCS, $5 off and free shipping. Finally, right? Finally.
Way back, right. And Bill came back with basically the information of that's exactly what was happening. Now, the Vatican, as powerful as it is and everything, has managed to skirt that issue for years and managed the high priests that were abusing children, whatever it may be. But Bill confirmed it. And being one of our board members, we sat down and had that meeting, and that was the first look we had into the power structure. And then, of course, above the Vatican, there's elite families. You know, there's the Rothschilds, there's the Bilderbergs, there's all the powerful global players. And so that's kind of the pyramid. You get all the way down the bottom, and there's the pimp.
It's like a damn mob. You got like a boss, captain,
it's like
honorable. I mean,
it's like the cabal on the blacklist.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Still can't believe you're on the fucking blacklist. I can't wait till we get to that part of this podcast.
Well, how weird is that I like live in that world and I get picked up as a co-star for the blacklist about a cabal, right? It's like, I felt right at home. Exactly.
So maybe it was your calling, you know?
Maybe it was. So, but to answer your question, it's big. It's billions of dollars. And that's not even including the satanic cults and satanic rituals and other organized things that take place. But when it comes to just children, I think the message that needs to be sent, particularly in our country, is that there's no sacred line any longer. And I tell parents all the time, look, whether you're a good parent or a bad parent, you know, if you care the least about your children, do everything you can to raise them properly and love them, because there are people out there that are willing to use them and make money. Once your kid's gone, I would love to be able to say that ARC can find and rescue every kid in the world that disappears. It's not the case. And I would love to sit here, Tommy, and say, we're going to end child trafficking. That's not true. We're not. Until Almighty God comes back, it's not happening. You know, we can, but on our watch, we can put the biggest dent in it that we can, or we can at least stand up in the face of evil and to say that when we get involved, you better watch out because we're coming and we're going to do our best to save kids. But that level of corruption that exists, particularly in a broken judicial system, and make no doubt about it, we are in a broken system right now.
And do you know how naive people are to this? Because when I was reading about this and I knew you had done it, and I had asked people about it, do you realize that, like, this shit's going on? I have no idea. You know why? Because all they do is this. Phone all day long.
Yeah.
I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah. Oh, and if they do, and you tell them, they just go, well, that's not true.
Yeah, or that was one. That was, 1 in a million.
Exactly. But it happens every day. Every day, thousands of kids list and disappear. Some are runaways. Some are kidnapped. Some just want to disappear. They hate where they are. But I think it's in our experience that now a vast majority of them end up getting trafficked. And
how much worse has this border being open? I mean, have you seen a massive increase?
We have. ARC broke the first case through a CIA confidential informant this past year when they called us and they said, hey, we have these flights showing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the Wilson Aviation area on the airstrip, and they're unloading children for these planes, right? So we put a team together, and fortunately for one of our board of directors had access to a flight. We took his private plane. We went there, got on the ground, set up surveillance, and sure enough, 2 o'clock in the morning, big jet flies in. They start unloading children. And
like it's nothing.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
When everybody's just turning their head while this is going on?
Yeah, everybody was. Like the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Wow.
We called them, and they said, it's on the up and up. We let them know ahead of time. The governor evidently did not know. Wilson Airfield.
How does the governor not know?
I don't know. Good question. The owners of Wilson Airfield said they didn't know, but yet the police officer that was working for Wilson Aviation, he knew. So the kids were taking off the planes.
Sounds like somebody got paid off.
They were loaded on buses. We followed the buses.
Wow.
The children were taken to another parking lot and just dumped out for individual cars. Saw no exchange of paperwork. There was not a reunification center. The kids just got on cars and just took off. And they didn't willfully get in cars. They were being led on which car to get into or whatever it may be. So
each car had to have a reason. This car goes here, this car goes to do something not good.
Something probably not good.
They weren't going to Pizza Hut.
They did not go to Pizza Hut. No, I don't think so. Or Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
But that's funny about the Pizza Hut thing. Remember the whole scam in Washington?
Yeah.
Pizza symbol thing. So we reported that. We even sent a report up to ICE to get their response, and what we got from them was the Biden administration has orchestrated this, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, that's my contacts on ICE. Didn't say they weren't going to do anything about it, just said we can't do anything about it. What's interesting about all of this then is I don't think the governors wanted it, all of them. But if it be true that Congress didn't, authorize it, or that the people didn't authorize it, this is probably the largest human trafficking operation by a federal government that I have ever seen in the history of the United States. Think about this. Good friend of ours who works with ARC actually went and sat down with the cartel, a member of the cartel, and she asked a question about unaccompanied minors coming to the border. And the cartel was bold enough because they have enough people on their payroll. And they said, think about this. We help get unaccompanied minors across the border. And we bring a lot of 17-year-olds in, a lot of males. They come across America, you take them, they go into foster care, they age out the next year. What do they do for work? They have no education. They can't get a job.
But now they're 18.
They're on our payroll. These are our next drug traffickers. These are our next mules. These are our next pornography distributors. And they went down the whole line. And you said they work for us. Now, they can say that, and you would think, how can they say that? They're giving it away. They can say it because they have enough people in the Senate and the United States of America and Congress that are on their payroll. And
they know nothing will happen.
They know nothing will happen.
So they'll go right up to you, Baz, we take 300,000. This one has drugs. This one we're going to, rape, do whatever,
Yeah.
blah 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 blah, and then they have no fear because they have them in their pocket.
Yeah, and they have judges, and they have members of law enforcement on their payroll as well. Now, a lot of people listening to this will say, "Well, you're just making that up." No, I'm not. We have that.
You wish you were making it up.
We have evidence, and that evidence, some of it was submitted to DOJ, and there are certain people in DOJ that have it and are holding it. The question is, why are they holding it? Because those members who are friends of ours in DOJ said, nothing's going to happen here right now, not under this administration. So we're just going to hold on to it until it's the right time to distribute it and let people know. But we've seen the evidence. And sure enough, there are people and names and places, and it's all true.
What's the benefit of this administration ignoring this? What's the benefit of opening the border? Like, what is it to them in their minds? What's the benefit?
Well, I think there's a number of things. Number one, if they're in bed with the cartel or global leaders, then you're helping their business model because you're letting these kids through because they're the next mules or whatever it may be. That's number one. Number two, you're bringing in a lot of people in the country that already depend on their government to help them. So you're already bringing a ready, set socialist mindset into the country. These people are never going to study the history of America, and we're not even teaching it anymore.
That makes
Our
sense.
own kids. I mean,
know.
I can go on the street to probably any 15-year-old that I find and go, who was the first president of the United States?
Hey, Rob, didn't you say they stopped? Are they doing history with your kids right now?
Yeah, my son has civics right now.
Does he?
Yeah, he goes to a charter school, but they.
Well, there you go. He goes to a charter school,
yeah,
right?
I don't know
Yeah.
about the regular public.
A lot of public schools aren't teaching. We talk to school teachers on a regular basis. Excuse me, and they're frustrated with it because civics isn't being taught, social studies isn't being taught. So nobody has a sense of nationalism. Okay, so you have, let's say, which generation is the new generation?
Z maybe, I don't know.
Is it Z, Xenex, or
Yeah, I'm not sure though.
it's one of those.
I just say when somebody I say your generation with your phone that you can't get off of. I don't know what you're doing.
that generation.
Yeah.
that generation.
That generation right there, right?
So if you have that generation that has no sense of nationalism, and they just go along with every liberal idea like, let's tear down the statues. Look, no country's perfect, but everything you tear down means your history is lost. It may not be a good history, but if you don't learn from it, you tend to repeat it again. So all those things, people around, whether you liked, I'll just use this thing again, whether you liked the Confederacy or the Union, it doesn't matter during the Civil War, okay? They all fought for causes they believed in, but we need to understand what that was all about. And so, because this is what Stalin did. After Nicholas was gotten rid of, Stalin came in and took all the books away, all the statues, everything to remind the new generations that were coming up what Mother Russia was like. And they had an amazing history. I mean, if you study their history, it's pretty rich. We have an amazing history too, based on people fighting for the freedom and democracy and all that. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the Civil War happened, and it wasn't just slavery. It was a lot of things. It's funny about that whole issue that I keep hearing coming up. I have a lot of, and I'm segueing just a little bit, but I'm going to come full circle here. I have a lot of friends who are Black Americans. They never want me to call them African Americans. They go, I wasn't born in Africa. I don't know anything about Africa. If my ancestors came from Africa, I am so blessed that they came here because I've been to Africa and I never want to live there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, however we got here. Like my grandfather came from Beirut, right? I'm so grateful that he came here from Beirut, Lebanon, and we're not there anymore because I don't want to be a part of all that stuff that's going on over there, right? Saying he wasn't treated fair as a guy that couldn't speak English or whatever it may be, and he had it coming up pretty rough. But I'm grateful, okay? So it's funny because when we're downrange with my buddies in special operations, our skin color is everything that you can think of, right? But we all bleed the same color. And this is one of the problems with everybody else. They haven't been downrange. So they don't understand that. So my Black American friends go, I'm an American. There are no Asian Americans. There are no Chinese Americans. There are no Lebanese Americans. We're just Americans. And to think otherwise just divides you, okay? It's just kind of like me
Isn't
saying,
that what they want, though?
Of course that's what they want.
That's what all this is about.
That's what it's all about,
division.
destroying the division,
Yeah.
You know, same thing with diversity, you know. Look, diversity.
That's
okay,
fun.
we want
That's
to be
a
diverse,
funny thing.
and we want to be inclusive. Okay, so I'm going to be diverse, and I'm going to put some wolves in the same pen with some sheep.
Great idea.
Very diverse.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very inclusive, but it's a nightmare, and people are going to die, right? So, no, I don't believe that everything should be all-inclusive, and I believe that conservatives have a right to be conservative as much as liberals have a right to be liberal if they want to be. But there's some really wacky things that are upside down right now. So, but back to what we were talking about is that it would be like you and me. You're on the 49ers, right? And I'm a Dallas Cowboy, and I run out on the field to join your team and I go, I'm a Dallas Cowboy 49er.
Yeah.
You're going to go, what team do you play for? So anytime I hear, as an American, particularly as a veteran, I hear people go,
I wouldn't even know what team you play for anymore because the
Yeah,
fucking Browns
exactly.
and
Yeah,
the names are
exactly.
all different now. You can't say
exactly.
Redskins.
And
How
then
can
you're
you
in
take
trouble.
Redskins away?
Exactly. You can't say that anymore. So
Commanders.
Sorry.
yeah.
That's great.
It's crazy, you know. So
I don't think the Indians wanted that gone. I'm sure they wanted it there. It was part of them.
It's part of their heritage. It reminds us
I'd
that
be pissed as
there's
fuck if I was
Indians,
them.
you know. So, but it's
That pisses me
so
off,
funny.
Football shit. Sorry.
But yeah, so I listen to all this stuff, and you're right. I think most people that don't have an education or don't understand the history of what Rick and I, you know, Rick Prado that you had on your show,
Great guy. Great.
amazing guy, love him to death, the real deal.
Real deal. Hold.
Nobody can hold water with him. I'm telling you, it's great. I trust him with my life. I served with him. He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing CIA operator. But and he would agree with me because we've had these discussions on many levels. But I think that we spent years trying to prevent socialism and communism from overtaking the world, but even coming here to America. And interesting enough, it's in our backyard right now. So we can smell it. But for all the kids in the generations, those who are on their phone, whatever, that don't know anything about the Cold War or Cold Warriors,
They don't even know what the Cold War is.
they don't even know what it is, right? So when people start shouting, we need socialism, we need the government to take care of us, they have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. Look at this. Here's a fine example. If they would just lean to common sense. If socialism was so good, then why aren't they trying to get across the Venezuelan border right now?
I was just gonna say, why is everybody trying to run here?
Why here?
If socialism
No.
and communism is so good,
Exactly.
Why do you got piles of people coming over here by the day,
Exactly.
walking however many miles?
There must
even
be-
though the cartel put stands out there for them and vending, all that
Right.
shit. I saw all that. My buddy, he just went to Arizona to do a cleanup. John Work.
Mhm.
He was at where'd he go? He did Texas and he also did Baltimore. Boy. He just got back this time. He just got back 2 days ago.
Wow.
He said, you wouldn't fucking believe what's going on out there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming in drones. They got stands, like literally like on
Yeah.
their walk,
yeah.
they got stands.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that they were coming from Chile to Miami.
They're coming from all over the world.
Yeah.
It's not, most people that hear the issue about the border, they just think it's Mexico.
No.
It's not.
No, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And in addition to this, Laura Logan was down there. Do you know who Laura Logan is?
No.
She's an amazing, world famous journalist, Laura.
Yeah.
You would know. But
If
anyway,
I saw a picture, sure.
she was down there, and they're giving out Social Security cards to illegal aliens right now. Border Patrol was doing it.
Oh.
And she got it all filmed. She got all the evidence and stuff.
What, the cell phones weren't enough?
Cell phones. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Why don't you just give them a social security number, ID, cell phone, and a house?
So what's happening with this administration right now is they are doing, and I think they're partly to answer your question you asked in the very beginning about the border. I think that the more people they can get over that have to rely on the government,
Get more votes.
the more socialism you have to put in the country to take care of those people, because nobody else is going to. I always think for all those Democrats and whoever they are that believe illegal aliens that we should have open borders, try this out one day. Go to one family, and it's a Democratic family, and say, okay, here's the deal. You're going to be responsible for the care of 3 illegal aliens. You have to feed them. You have to take care of them. You have to pay for their education. You have to let them live in your house and blah, blah, blah. You have to buy them cars and cell phones and computers. Then how many do you think would say?
And if you don't, you
and
go
if
to
you
jail.
don't, exactly. If
And
you don't, you go to jail. How many of them would step up to the plate?
I bet that whole mood would change, huh?
Yeah, if I were a senator, and that's the law I'd be trying to pass right there.
Yeah.
Fine. Do you think open borders? Here's the deal. We're going to assign a family of 8 to you, every one of you Democrats.
Yep.
Here you go. And just ask them. But we don't see that. Again, it's the hypocrisy. You don't see any of the Democratic senators up there offering.
You could probably do that 3 times and put it on TV. Just 3 times. I bet you that would change the whole game.
We should probably do that.
We should do it.
We should think about that.
We should.
But, it's kind of like when Obama was talking about when it's really funny when I remember, and Rick knows this too. It's funny when he was talking about how he was so against us interrogating terrorists, particularly waterboarding them, right? I wanted so bad to stand before Obama and say, let me ask you a question, Mr. President. Your wife and your 2 daughters have been captured by ISIS. And in 24 hours, they're going to cut their heads off. But we have one of the ISIS leaders right here, and he knows where your wife and your kids are.
Yeah.
What would you be willing to do to get that information out of him right now in the next 24 hours?
We both know what he would say. Do whatever you have to do, but for him, but not for anybody else.
No,
right?
no.
But for him, it's okay.
Well, it's the same thing when, presidents go, like Biden right now. We got to get rid of guns. Well, okay, sir. You got all your Secret Service, take all their weapons and throw them in the garbage can and protect you with toothpicks, and then we will be willing to think about that. It's like liberals.
It's so hypocritical.
Oh my gosh, globalists, liberals, Democrats, we know what they want to do with conservatives and patriots. They want to get rid of us. But do they really think we're going to comply?
Seriously? We've never complied. It's been a battle since the beginning of time.
Because we know what that's all about. Look, every nation that Rick and I ever went into and the UN wanted people to get rid of their guns, it wasn't because they were concerned about crimes. It was so they couldn't rise up against the government that we were trying to put in place every single time. And that's what this is about right here. It's the same identical thing.
What's that, Rob?
As of the government, then, if you take away all the guns, the government's got full control.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
Do you think some of this stuff, I've heard people talk about it. I'm not well versed with it, but the name that always gets brought up when talking about some of this stuff is George Soros.
Yeah.
So I think he has a lot to do with.
I think he does too. He has a lot. He hates the country. I think after Trump actually spoke at the World Economic Forum. I think the UN made it very clear. One of the representatives there said Trump is a very dangerous man because he's not falling in line with the globalists. Which, by the way, globalism is just another name for socialism and communism. And George Soros even made a point, and I've seen it on footage, where he said Mr. Trump is a very dangerous man and he needs to be gotten rid of, and he will not win in this next election, which led us to believe. And that wasn't even before the election happened, right? We knew that they were going to steal the election because Soros was involved. Now, what's so funny about this is the day it was happening, and this is another thing you should talk to Rick about as well. I had a buddy of mine who retired from the agency. He called me up. We'll call him Dan. And Dan said, Dominion is using the same system we used in South America. He goes, the election's going to be stolen. He knew that ahead of time. And sure enough.
Did you see 2,000 Mules?
No, I haven't seen it, but I heard that.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
So I have the thing. When you see that, wow. Did you ever watch that, Rob?
No.
So they have hours and you can't make this up.
Yeah.
You can make up a little bit, but not this much.
Yeah.
You got guys going to the Walmart, Dropbox, and they're coming with 7 envelopes a day. 7 a day. And then every 3 hours, they come back. All over the place, especially Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And nobody does anything.
Yeah. Well, think about that.
And they actually kicked it off Netflix, kicked it off Amazon.
Of course they did, because guess what?
They're
on somebody's payroll.
The
of course.
Yeah,
and they're on the payroll, and those companies' liberal CEOs are already being influenced by other people, like the administration, whatever it may be. So think about this. And when you live in a country where you have to fact check a tweet, but then you don't have to validate a ballot, something's wrong. And that's where we are. And we're at this place where there's no accountability. And what's happening, particularly after this raid with Trump on Mar-a-Lago, right down the road here, things have pushed closer to the line. I get paid as a consultant to do things called predictability outcomes and threat assessments. And what we do is contextual analysis based on a lot of factors, and about 90% of it on experience, right? And so when people...
I saw that you had done that. So how do you go about predicting outcomes? Because you were an expert with that, right?
Well, I don't know if I'm an expert.
Well, they
probably
put you
a
down,
lot of people.
They put you down as an expert.
Yeah.
You were an expert at predicting the outcomes of like terrorism nationally and everything else.
Right.
How do you go about predicting that? Like, what do you look for?
Well, there's a lot of behind the veil work that goes into it. There's a lot of intel that's gathered. And so there's experience that's added to it. And there's a lot of what we call proprietary methodology that goes into all of that. For example, sources and methods that we don't disclose that allow us to really understand what someone is really saying. And in fact, this time you always remember this, especially with the media, and especially with this administration. It's never about what they're saying. It's what they're not saying that counts. So anytime I hear a Democrat or a liberal, they're not even Democrats anymore. This is not the Democrat of my father's days. These are socialist, communist Democrats. Okay.
Yeah, when I was growing up as an Italian, my whole family was Democrat.
My dad was too. It's also.
I mean, hardcore.
I know, but it was just.
It was different.
I know it's a different
time
thing. So, and I would say the same thing about Republicans. If all of a sudden they were going left, I'd say not the same Republicans. And it's true. There are some Republicans that I still question. Are you really for the country? So I lean right in there with conservatives and mostly patriots. And people ask me on my political views. I said, look, I'm neither. I'm not a two-party guy. I just want the right leader in there, which is why I liked Trump.
That's what we say. We say we're not. I don't know. Nobody cares if you're red, blue, green, purple. Just the best.
The best for the country. Support the Constitution.
And you didn't have this shit going on when Trump was in.
No, we didn't.
Russia would not have even thought twice because they had fear.
That's exactly right.
Machiavelli.
Exactly. Totally Machiavelli.
You ever read it?
Yeah.
202.
Yeah.
Out of 250 videos, what do we have? 3 people that knew who Nicolaus Machiavelli was?
Yeah. So, and a lot of people, it's interesting. People, and I know some very close friends of Trump's, and they might not liked his delivery. I didn't vote for the guy for his delivery. I didn't vote for him because I liked his hair or didn't like his hair, or the orange man. That's not why I voted. I voted for a leader. And one thing about it, you may not like his personality, but it is hard to argue with what he did for the country as the president of the United States.
Especially with all the fighting and attacking him and everything else. I mean, say what you want about him tweeting or whatever. What I liked about his tweeting and what I liked that he kept doing it, even though they told him not to, he stayed him.
He
didn't let the lobbyists get to him. He didn't let the other people get to him. Get off there, Donald. Get off. Yeah. Nope. Nope. I'm going to do whatever I want and be me because you didn't pay me off. You didn't pay me
Exactly.
off. Right?
Yeah, well, he wasn't part of the club.
Right. He wasn't part of the
cult.
And
he came in to drain the swamp, and I still think that hopefully the swamp still needs draining, I think.
He's a hell of a lot of draining.
He exposed a lot, and it made them very uncomfortable. And now people know. But because there is so much corruption, they don't care if anybody knows. They do it right in front of your face, which is pushing the American people. And what's interesting, not only the American people, but I've got friends who were Democrats that don't want to be Democrats anymore. They don't want to be Republicans. You know what they want to be? They want to be patriots. These are people that were Democrats that go, look, I love the Constitution. I love my freedom. I hate socialism. I went overseas to stop this. So I'm not going to be a Democrat or Republican. I'm going to be a patriot is what I want to be and love the country. So this is a really interesting dynamic that's surfacing in America today. But
You know what's funny, Buzz?
Yeah.
Real quick, not to cut you
go
off. Before I changed the comments where you have to go to my website to leave a comment, I would get comments that people would say, I never thought I'd say this, but I wish I would have changed my vote.
Yeah.
Like multiple times. And people that I knew that were bluer than blue, which I don't care because I like them as long as we're not talking. The politics things get, you know, I mean, bluer than blue. Like bluer than, give me a blue
The sky.
cartoon.
The sky.
The sky. I was trying to think of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Anyway, blue. And they've had it.
Yeah.
But they keep it quiet, though.
Oh, of course. Well, here's the interesting thing. I'd like to encourage Americans that don't like what's going on right now to speak up. Conservatives and patriots generally are pretty nice. Look, you don't see a bunch of conservatives or patriots burning down buildings, turning over cars, rioting in the streets with Antifa and BLM. You don't see that. It's generally liberals and Democrats, you know. And I'm convinced that you're exactly right, Tommy. It's an orchestrated plan to destroy America and or, for example, what's going on now. I think that the Democratic Party, who's run by the globalists, which is what you were talking about, George Soros and a lot of other people, I think they're scared and they're going to do everything they can to interrupt or disrupt the country so that if a Republican or conservative president gets in office, he's going to have his hands full. And whoever that's going to be, they are going to have their hands full. Unless they're a Donald Trump type of guy, like DeSantis or somebody that basically says to ICE, go round everybody up and put them back in their own country. Or this is what we're going to do, and I don't care what you're doing, we're going to preserve the Constitution, because what's happening, and based on predictability studies, people have asked me this because of the rumors floating around about civil war. War in our country is not something I want. I think the last time we saw it was the Civil War. And it was bloody and things were destroyed. And I think, again, Rick would agree with me. We've seen a lot of it. It just destroys a lot. It destroys people's lives. It destroys everything. But the Constitution is worth fighting for. And as our founding fathers established. And a lot of times we go back to that, and even in the face of Democrats and liberals calling conservatives and patriots terrorists, even the FBI calling them terrorists, like you can't fly the Betsy Ross flag anymore, or you're a domestic terrorist. Even in the face of all of that, if we go back to our founding fathers, they were called terrorists too by the British because they wanted their freedom. And not all 13 colonies were on board at that time. There were a lot of Tories, and there were other people that were a bunch of spies for the British and whatever it may be. But here's the interesting thing. And they can dismiss this and make the younger generations think that conservatives or patriots or whatever are terrorists. And the kids won't know any better because why? They don't know history. They don't understand what it's like to have socialist input, tell them when and what they will learn and how much money they can make. And, you know, it's like that thing when somebody says, we should share all our money. It's like, I went up to a kid one time. I said, do you have $100? She was a coffee shop. And she said, yeah, because we were having this discussion. I said, so what is it? And she had it in 20s. I said, well, I'm going to give it back to you, but give me them. So she gave me $100. And I said, now I'm going to take this 20 and give it to that lady over there. And I'm going to keep 20 and I'm going to give it. And she was like, that's my money. That's my money. I said,
that she worked for.
That she worked for, right? And I said, but wait a minute. You said we should have equal distribution. I mean, you don't like this idea anymore? And she goes, no, that's my money. I worked for it. I said, right. You worked in a capitalist system that allows you to make that money and keep that money, okay? But if you want a socialist system and I'm a ruler over you, that's what I'm going to do because I'm the government.
And referring back to your point, that's why the history is so important, because people don't know what socialism is. They don't know what communism is. All they see is, oh, here's a free check.
That's right.
Here's this. Here's free rent for 3 months.
It's like the the student loan discussion. It's like if I borrow $1,000 from you, hey, can I borrow $1,000? Sure. You know, you're gonna pay me back, right? You don't have to pay interest, but you'll pay me back. Okay, great. Then I'm just like, you know what? Sorry, buddy, I can't pay you back. Like, you're gonna be pissed. right?
Right.
You have your student loan, you take it out for a reason, okay, to better yourself or to whatever it is. If you know your job that you're going for is only going to pay so much a year, then you have to figure it's going to take me X amount of years to pay this loan off. But now you're just like, well, I don't really want to pay it off. I just want you to give it to me for free.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. I mean,
but then the government comes in and says, hey, let's take out another $10 trillion and let's pay it.
Well, how about that? Is there any country in the world that you know of that taxes its people and gives some of that money to Americans?
No.
Why do we do it?
No.
Why do we let our government tax us and then they give that money to everybody else? I don't know the answer to that.
And it's almost like the harder you work, the more you pay. So really,
Exactly.
like there's like, in the brackets, it's almost, you got to watch that bracket and stop working at this point. Or just take cash only. Just kidding.
Right. So
Kidding, joke.
That was a joke. Well, all of this stuff is culminating into that rumor that we're on the verge of civil war. I see it on the news. I mean, Tucker Carlson talked about it a little bit. I think others haven't.
I'll tell a quick little story.
Yeah, go ahead.
My dad is 82 years old.
His dad's the man. He's like us.
He was it was an older dad, right? I was a younger dad. But from the time I was going to college, my dad used to always sit there and go, Bob, calls me Bob, there's going to be another civil war in this country, I'm telling you. And I said, Dad, would you stop? You're crazy. He's like, I'm telling you, and this is going back 2003. That's how long ago.
Yeah.
Dad's still alive. He's been saying it since then. There's going to be another civil war in this country, I'm telling you. I'm like, Dad, you're crazy. There's no chance ever. And now the how you see the division, how you see what's going on, not saying it's going to happen, but it's the closest in his prediction it's ever been since 2003.
Hey, my grandmother back in 1968 was saying the same thing as your dad. They might have been friends.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
No, she was saying the same thing, and she didn't say it was going to be a war against race. It wasn't going to be a race war. She was literally talking about a political civil war. And so when we look at what we're doing, if I did predictability studies or predictability outcomes, which I actually have because somebody asked me to do it based on the rumors in the U.S., this is what I would tell people from my best experience. I don't think we'll have a civil war like the North against the South. I don't think it'll be a uniformed war. What I think will happen, or what I should say is likely to happen, is that the conservatives are patriots. Republicans, who are they? Are people that love the Constitution and want to preserve the country, are quite skilled. They're skilled enough now, particularly with all our Tier 1 operators that have come back from Afghanistan, Iraq, and who, quite honestly, are very patriotic, a lot of those. They already know from January the 6th that if they group up for a rally, that they're going to be targeted illegally. Just what's happened. How many people do we have in jail? Illegally, I think illegally in jail for just being there, right?
Yeah.
And
we've had a couple of men. They tried to rape Tig. Do you know Tig?
I know. Yeah. He lives down the street. Well, not the street. He lives in Colorado and everything.
I'm
John?
Yeah, I talked to John. Oh, yeah, I forgot we talked about him. And his moose is out back. Did you see those things? Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk every couple of days.
Yeah, he and I were at a couple of rallies together with my wife, Tina, and I. And when, two, actually, when we got attacked by BLM and Antifa for a Back to Blue rally. And then another one after that John put together where actually a participant got killed. Just like John and I just finished talking. He walked away, and I was, 50 yards behind him, and we heard a shot fired. I turned around, and there's this guy that, killed this, one of the, the people that were at the rally, so to speak.
Well, I won that by bidding at the, I can never say that thing he had, UF, I always mess up.
His organization?
Yeah. I kept,
in the Defense Force? Or?
Yeah, I kept bidding.
Yeah.
Everybody got pissed, and I don't know, I won a bunch of shit.
There you go, good.
But they tried to get him on January 6th.
Yeah.
They tried to get him for January 6th. What he said?
For what?
About a month ago, and he's like, buddy, I got hip surgery.
Yeah, well, I know that.
Well, he was at home.
Of course, because I was there.
Yeah, he got hip surgery.
Talking to him on the phone before he was going into surgery. And I was like, Yeah. So yeah.
Because I even said to him, I said, "You're getting 2 done at the same time."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's he's like you guys. He's a monster.
Well,
but
did he say
point
who
is,
came after him? Was it the Bureau?
He didn't
FBI?
say. He just said that they came knocking on his door about January 6th.
Well, it's funny because I've got a lot of friends that are in the FBI. Many that are leaving, actually, that have called me, and they're saying this is not the organization that I signed up for. And I'm an adjunct professor that I'm taught there, and those associates of mine in discussions are saying the same thing. It's like, and I'll say the same thing openly about the CIA. You know, when Obama came in, he put people in 4 layers deep. We know that. And even my friends that are still at the agency are like, even our agency is upside down.
Yeah, and Rick was so pissed because, you know, there was, you know, a handful of dirty CIA guys.
Yeah.
And nobody came out and really stuck up for him or fought for the organization. That's, say, 10 out of however many CIA guys.
Yeah.
But when you don't come out and stick up for you guys and say, hey, look, that's 4 out of 1 million, then it just gives a bad rap.
It
just
sure
like
does.
it does with the FBI and everything else.
Yeah.
So when we go back to predictability, you know, and all that, so you see what's going on right now.
Yeah.
They raid Trump. That, you know, that warrant was bullshit.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're not doing a very good job of explaining themselves.
No, I mean,
kind of like the Russian hoax.
I mean, how
you know?
stupid can you be? Like, you can't
Some
write a
people can be
search
pretty
warrant
stupid.
correctly. Like a search warrant, you have to say, I'm going to go in this studio. I'm going to go in that room.
Well, here's what will happen, Tommy, is they don't have to. You know why? Because they're not going to be held accountable.
Do you think he gets indicted?
Who?
Trump.
Did I think he did what?
No, I mean, do you think they'll indict him? Like on this raid? Like, do you think
Good
he'll end up in
question.
court?
I think if they've got enough people paid off, they'll do the same thing. I don't think they're very creative, whoever they are. They do the same dance all the time. We saw it with the Russia hoax. We've seen it with everything they've tried to go against Trump. They want to shut Trump down because Americans love Trump. They love his leadership, and he loves the country. And so they're afraid of him. So much to the point that
they'll do anything.
They'll do anything. They'll try to assassinate him. You know, they'll try to do anything. They'll try to take out his family to send a message. They'll do all of that. But here's where they're making their mistake, is while they're focused on Trump and a couple other people, they cannot focus on the literally millions of American patriots that are ready to fight and are well armed and absolutely will not be defeated. Because what will happen is it'll be surgical. They won't do a January 6th rally. What will happen is certain people in the United States who are very qualified will start targeting corrupt individuals. And you'll see, and I predict this, it's not that I advocate violence. I want to be very clear, and I don't want to see civil war here. But if I were to be sitting in the office back at the agency saying, what do you predict can happen? Then this is what I predict can happen. And that Democrats, liberals, corrupt people that are seen as corrupt or people that are seen as trying to push socialism or destroy the Constitution will be the people that get targeted. And I mean targeted like their lives will be targeted. And the FBI won't be able to keep up with it. There's too many. And the military will be divided over whatever this is. But that's the type of civil war that will evolve. It's the same thing that will evolve, as I've seen evolve in third world nations, when the masses who are trying to protect what they loved would not rally. They didn't have to. They went underground. They became the underground, and they just started targeting along the way. And it's virtually impossible to stop that in this country. I don't care how much technology you have. I don't care how big you posture yourself. We're this 3-letter agency or we're that 3-letter agency. I know because I have the discussions. They are shaking in their boots because they know they can't control it. When you start having things, the nation fall apart, you start having things like assassinations and car bombs, and all of this stuff starts taking place that local, state, and federal police are not prepared for. And then all of a sudden the people that are doing it will be called terrorists or whatever it may be. And in fact, all they're trying to do is what our founding fathers did, just fight a war against tyranny. And I don't think at this stage, when we do the contextual analysis, I think what we see is that a majority of Americans, many Democrats, realize that this government is a tyrannical government, or that's how they perceive it to be. They are tired of being lied to. They are tired of unaccountability. They are tired of a broken judicial system. And it's not the stupid Antifa or BLM or
no, it's way above that.
It's way above
that's
that.
Little.
Those guys were
that's
paid to
stuff.
do that. You know,
Yeah.
when all that was happening, we had friends that went undercover, and they were all being paid. I mean, just simple ask yourselves, like, do these guys have work? How do they get out here for 4 weeks and rally and burn things down, and just do they quit their job? How are they making money? People, they were being paid. We did it in the CIA. When
total fucking
when we
setup.
wanted to, like, and we were messing with governments, and we
we're
wanted
doing it to our own people.
Yeah,
it's not like CIA goes over to.
Right.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong. You go over to say Nigeria.
Right.
And you mess with them. You're not here messing with us, with your own people, right?
Well, I don't know if we went to Nigeria again. But
I'm just saying.
I
just remember Rick saying Nigeria, so that just popped.
Yeah,
in my head.
a foreign country.
Foreign country. Yeah.
But let's say we had a foreign country that, in the old days, that was a socialist country, and their leaders begged us to help them with democracy. You know, and there was all kinds of things that were done in order to cause the rise and fall of a government, and part of that was paying people to do things. You know, cause disruptions, whatever it may be. So it doesn't surprise us when you know we see this happening in our own country. For we that came out of the agency, it's like, oh, this is playbook. I mean, we know what's going to happen next. Blah blah blah. And sure enough, it happens every single time. Here's the problem: you can show the evidence that George Soros is doing it. You can have the evidence that they get paid. Just follow the money. You talk about the FBI doing their job or the CIA doing their job. They can follow the money. They have relationships with banks. They can ask for a warrant. They can see anything. Follow the money, and here's what generally happens. They follow the money, and I know this would be the case in a real case. They see who it's linked to, and it's somebody that's political, perhaps, or global. Perhaps. And they're told hands off. Now, that person could be indicted right then today. They could be thrown in prison for treason, for instigating problems, whatever it may be, and yet they don't. So much to your question, it's like, why hasn't George Soros been locked up? Why hasn't Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton been locked up? Why haven't a lot of people that got caught with their hands in the cookie jar been locked up? Because everybody's on their payroll. A great movie. Do you remember the movie The Untouchables?
Yeah.
With Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Well, if you're as old as me, there was one before that, okay? But actually, it was a TV show.
Really?
Yeah, about Elliot Ness.
Were you in it? Because you
No, that was
7,000
that was
shows
way,
when
way
we get to that.
But what was the main problem that he was up against when he went there?
Do you remember?
It's been a while.
It's been a while for me.
Corruption. Al Capone had everybody on the payroll, right?
Yeah.
He was untouchable. I mean, like, and you know, no one could
do anything.
That's where we are right now, at the 14,000-foot level. It's that much corruption.
The question I always have, this is the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
And I really mean this. This is very hard. So you have your social media, you have YouTube, you have all this stuff that you're taking all this information in, right? Information come from here, hitting you here, hitting you here, hitting you here, hitting here. How does one say, and I understand stuff's blocked and we can follow that and figure out, well, why are they blocking this information? There's a reason why they're doing it. But how does one figure out, like, my God, sometimes it hits you this way and this way, and like, I don't know if this guy's making this up or this guy's making this up. Like, sometimes you get two differing opinions, two different things. You're like, well, that could be bullshit, but that could be bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
How does one figure out what is bullshit and what is not bullshit? Is that a good?
That's a great question.
How do we do that?
Yeah, you have to do your research. If you're willing to do the research, at least 15 layers down, okay?
Yeah.
Or you have the people that can do it. And there are people that can do that. There are guys out there, and that's all they do is they just, like, research this stuff to make sure that you've got ground truth, right? If you'll do that, and it's labor intensive, but if you'll do that, you'll find the truth. Now, the question is, how bad do you want to know the truth? The reality is this, is that many people don't care.
Sure.
They just care if I feel this way about that or I think this way. So they gain an opinion based on what they want to believe, and they don't like the stuff on Trump, you know, a lot of that stuff. You know, how many times did it get proven that
He had
the media
nothing to
was
do with-
wrong.
Wrong. I mean, they spent what, 3, and out of all people, I've had friends that Mueller set up like you wouldn't even believe.
Yeah.
Friends of mine, Mueller set them up, had paid people to testify against them. 3 of my friends got 20 years because of that asshole.
Yeah.
On a case when they should have got 2.
Yeah.
We're talking about petty stuff.
Right.
But Mueller, for whatever reason, when he was U.S. attorney, he wanted these guys, and he made sure it happened.
That's right.
So if Mueller is investigating Trump for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll go and pay anybody to get anybody,
Right.
and they can't get Trump, if Mueller can't get him on that Russia
He
thing,
must be clean.
he must be clean.
Yeah.
So now you go raid him,
Right.
a president,
And you get a judge to sign off
and
on
you
it.
get a judge to sign
Who
off
did
on it.
what with Epstein?
What? Oh, was on the thing with Epstein, right?
Exactly.
So
Who supported Obama's campaign?
fuck, every lobbyist in the planet?
Well, there you go.
Every
This is the
bank.
guy that's. So you look at all the players, right? And you take a look at all the players and go, wait a minute. Let's just take a look. Are they credible? Are they honest? Are they upstanding? Have they had their hands dirty? What do they think about the Constitution? Where are their thoughts? Where's their moral line? Whatever that, and you add all that
I
up.
don't think they have a moral line.
Well, I'll give you an example because
Yeah.
recently, so like, you know, you have the Epstein. We're talking about Epstein. You had the flight logs, right? They have the flight
Right.
logs, and
On the Lolita?
yeah, and they, you know, Clinton's name was on that log, right? Now, something I just saw that came out. I think Joe Rogan. Don't quote me on this. Someone shared it, but that Trump was on one of those flights, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I
I
think he
saw
was,
I
right.
saw that on TMZ. But if he really was, right? If he was on one of those flights,
Yeah.
that would have came out the day that they had.
Yeah,
that
yeah. No, it
information, right?
makes weird how it's coming out now. Like that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. That's where you kind of look through the fluff. But I just wonder, like when you see that puts the doubt in people's mind. Then, like maybe he was on there.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
right.
he-
You throw that
that's
in
the
the
hard
media.
part. I'm saying when you're seeing it.
That's a
coming
good
out.
point, Rob. Because if you see that, you read it and you say, "Oh, wow, he
He's
was
just like-
on.
he's
He
just
was
like
doing
the
it.
others.
You know, it's all bullshit,
Yeah.
but
Right.
he's just like them."
Right.
Then
Well, and another thing, with all fairness to, and this is hard for me to say, all fairness to even Clinton
Yeah.
and those guys, okay? Until you have evidence that they actually participated in the trafficking of children,
Sure.
right, you can't, you got to be careful. Just because they flew down there doesn't necessarily mean they engaged in it.
Right.
Now, if you have somebody that can testify and say, like they did with the royal family, right? If you have somebody that says, yeah, I was 14 and Bill Clinton did this to me in this island, then you got a case here. And the interesting thing about it, though, is that those witnesses will generally don't come forward. Now, this takes us back to trafficking. We deal with trafficking victims all the time. They don't want to come forward and testify because they think they'll be suicided by the gang MS-13. The ones that we know that have had senators or political
and you
figures
can't blame him.
as clients,
Yeah.
they go, you can't protect me. And here's why. They'll go in, and if you get a brave one that'll testify in court, it's only a week later before they get assassinated or killed. We've dealt with that personally, and the police don't offer them witness protection. So we generally have to offer them some type of witness protection.
How do they not offer? I guess how isn't even the question. I can't believe they don't offer witness protection.
Yeah,
like,
they
like
don't.
real witness protection.
They don't.
No,
They don't. The NGOs we do, but what? No. Go ahead. What's that?
The witness protection is too expensive, so that's
Yeah.
why the feds don't operate.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So, but we can run it at, a third of the price or whatever that may be. And so anyway, that's exactly one of the reasons why. But the reality of it is the word spreads in the ranks among traffic victims. If they rat on their client, they're going to die.
You're dead.
And they're probably going to die anyway of an overdose or something like that. But they don't want to die young. And so what you do is you do the same thing the WHO and the CDC did with this whole pandemic thing. You put people in fear, and they don't move. And the same thing, if you can put the fear of God in a witness, that if you rat me out, I mean, I'm wondering why Monica Lewinsky didn't end up dead.
Me too.
After she,
Now that I think about it, me too.
it's like how, maybe she played her cards right, and she said, "I've got so much exposure now
Yeah.
that if I die, everybody's going to know that somebody did
Yeah,
it."
she was too.
But the reality of it is that she could have died. They could have offed her, and they've still gotten away with it. So the question for all of us, and I think in our audience, is simply this: is like, how do we right the ship? How do we bring accountability back? I think we do it with a guy like Trump, who puts Barr back in the DOJ, and Katie Sullivan and all these other great people. I think that's how we do it.
What's your prediction with him? What's your prediction with him with the raid? Do you think he runs in 24? What's your prediction? The way you see things now, with your past, what do you see him doing?
I think it's a timing thing, Tommy, and I don't think he wants to show his cards yet. I think he's smart enough to keep the smokescreen going, because he knows right now what we're seeing is they're trying to keep him so busy that he doesn't run. But I
guess they forgot that he's a billionaire and has a lot of lawyers and doesn't give a fuck.
I think they did. I think they did.
And the lawyers, I mean, you can be a paid-off judge all you want. When you have a search warrant that is completely illegal and wrong, I mean, he's going to beat it. He's going to be. They might hit him with another one.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to.
Yeah,
They're
because they screwed up this one.
Right. They're going to keep throwing everything they can to keep him from running, and here's why. If he runs, he'll win. Because all he's got to do is step on the podium and go, "You miss me yet?" You know, that famous thing.
Unless they throw smallpox or
they'll do
whatever.
everything. We're going to see everything before. As it gets closer, we'll probably see. I don't think we're going to see the riots again for BLM and Antifa. I don't think that's what we're going to see.
Pandemic.
Because that was all Democratic stuff to keep and to make Trump look bad, right? But he played it smart. What did he do? He did the American thing. He goes, "This is up to the governors. This is their state." When the Democratic governors, they're the ones suffering right now, and the stupid people in their states let them do it. And now, guess what? Their taxes are higher. Why? Because they got to build up their burnt-down cities again. You know, and the Republican governors, like, we're not going to have this. You're not going to burn our buildings down. So what did they do? They called in the National Guard. They called in the police, and they didn't defund their police, right? And they didn't get any buildings burned down, so now they don't have to raise the taxes. But all the liberals and all those other places, they're paying for it now. So it's like, you really like this?
You've been on all this media. How much do you think they missed those ratings? They can hate him all he wants. Those ratings, everybody went home. If you knew Trump was coming on at 6, whether you liked him or hated him, you wanted him to go, "There, you. Yeah. He didn't give a shit. I mean, everybody really, it was, Trump's on. Even if you hated him. I had people at my house that hated him.
Yeah.
And when he would come on, everybody would sit down and watch and laugh. Crazy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those people now are looking back, and in fact, I know the ones I've talked to who are Democrats are going, you know, if I should have voted for Trump. I wish he were back. The nation, you know, it's out of control. The gas prices are out of control. I mean, it's not just the gas prices. It's gas, food. It's the whole thing that's breaking us. I mean, when my wife and I, when Tina and I were just having lunch just across the bridge, right? It looked like all the businesses were having a hard time, you know, because of the economy. It's uncalled for. I mean, how did we go from a bag of potato chips being $2 to $9?
Yeah.
How did you go from a chicken breast going from $3.95 to $12.85?
I used to buy eggs for 99 cents. You know?
Yeah, what are you buying for now?
$3.99.
Damn.
Wow.
$3.99.
It's crazy.
For eggs?
I couldn't fucking believe it. I love eggs. I couldn't fucking believe it. It's been gradually going up, but the last time I was there, maybe it was 3.80 something, but still from 99 cents.
and then say you get home late, right? And you want to order Uber Eats.
Forget
It used to just be like $5, you know, for now it's $10.
Yeah.
Because of the gas.
Yeah.
But, you know, the guy's got to drive to go get the food.
That's right.
Then he's got to drive to deliver it to you and then drive back to the next restaurant. So there's no choice but to up it. So now Uber Eats is another $10 on top of the the price of the food.
Yeah.
It's just everything.
When people can't afford it, then they can give it to them. And that
Right.
gets to that socialist push that, well, you need us because we're going to give you money to get
That's
groceries
right.
and to
You're
get-
exactly
to get
right.
Food, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
here's
exactly
a card.
right.
Here's a
Here's
card.
a card. Here's what
Yeah.
Government's going to subsidize. How well, you know, I mean, Yeah, and going back to the pandemic thing, yes, I believe we're going to, well, they already tried it. Remember, like, CDC came out with, like, we got Omicron. It's deadlier than deadly. Oh, we're going to have another something. Now, Fauci, as I saw, is retiring in December, right?
Good.
What's interesting in this was we have Dr. Martin and some close friends of ours that have a lawsuit against Fauci and Biden, and I'm talking about for criminal charges. And that lawsuit went up last week, and it is deadly for them. And so they're feeling.
But don't they have everybody paid off that they'll just get it tossed?
Not this group. I think we're going to be effective.
Really?
I think they're going to be very effective with it. You know.
Well, the guy who invented
the evidence. They have the evidence.
Well, the guy who invented the vaccine, Dr. Malone, came out, and those guys stay in labs.
Yeah.
They don't go on TV.
Right.
That's all they do. But it was so bad because he got bad information.
Yeah.
So he's making the vaccine, and after a while, he's like, this shit doesn't look. It just doesn't seem right. And then he comes out, the guy who made it, and he's saying, look, it's making women go into menopause early. It's taking women out of menopause. It's messing with men's sperm count. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And they're like, go take 5 more boosters.
Right.
The guy who made it.
Yeah.
The guy who invented it.
Well, didn't the CDC?
My head spins.
Aren't they like backstepping now?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really work or whatever. Look, I will tell you this.
Well, the CDC says that, but then you got the other half saying go get another booster.
Exactly. And there's something. Think about this. Why? That's the question. Is why? Now, I will tell you this from personal experience. I've looked at vaccinated people's blood under the dark field microscope at a quantum medical lab. It looks like a battlefield.
Really?
And the things I saw in there were scary.
Mutating like hell, right?
Oh my gosh, it's really bizarre. It's bizarre, and so I think that over the course of the next, excuse me, 5 to 10 years, I think Dr. Martin's prediction and others about people just dying off, I think it's going to happen.
Dude.
I think people are going to just start dying out. They're getting weird blood cancers.
Do you think it's in the food or in the air?
No, I think it's in the vax.
Yeah.
I think it's what's in their blood. I don't think, number one, I don't think we should be calling it vaccination because it's not what it is.
The guy who made it said it's not.
Exactly. So, but we're managed to put people in fear that all common sense went out the window, you know, and people just said, I got to get this because they said if I don't, and so they got it. But guess what happened? You got COVID. Oh, we need another one. Okay, so they got another one. But you got COVID. Then you got a booster. But then you got COVID. So why do they keep pushing this in the face of the truths that are coming out by reputable scientists that are saying it's not this and it's causing these problems because people are scared?
And it's better off just to let your immune system build up so you can fight it.
Exactly.
Because if you're wearing a mask and gloves and a bodysuit all day long, how is your immune system going to learn to fight it off?
Exactly.
You get it, you fight it, and then you're good. Unless you have like a pre-existing condition, then.
But when people
then the vaccine just really whacks them even quicker.
Well, look at what they don't talk about in the face of other things like influenza and the Spanish flu and the Chinese bird flu and all that stuff. People died from that stuff because they had pre-existing conditions. But never before was it used as a mechanism to control people. Not like this time. So if you study and you look back at all the footage that's out there, and you can get a hold of it, of globalists who keep talking about depopulation, it's a reality. They talk about, we'll create a pandemic. People will be scared. They will die off, and we'll be able to control this and this and this. And look at how much they were able to control around the world because people were scared.
And how far away do you think we are from that happening?
I think we're at it now.
Well, do you think we're at it now?
Yeah.
Let me give you my little hypothesis.
Go for it. I want to hear it.
All right, Rob's heard this about 10 times, so he's going to get bored. So I think they'll do some type of pandemic. But I also think when it's right around election time, I think China will make their move on Taiwan. And if Biden puts one fucking sanction on China,
all right,
that's it.
War?
I don't know war. I haven't decided that, but we're fucked because China will cut us off. This is my opinion. I think that China, well, we know China, they slow walk.
Mm-hmm.
They have patience. We have egos. They have patience.
That's true.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
So I think now's the time. They got a weak guy in there. They're going right around 2024, right around the election. Now, Biden's going to have all the pressure from the people around him to sanction China. But if he sanctions China, I think they cut everything off from us. And everything, this, that, everything is from China.
In a broken economy.
In a broken economy.
Got it.
And then everybody's like, oh, well, Taiwan has all the chips. Do you think that China hasn't already been making all those chips for the last 100 years that they've been waiting to go take Taiwan? And when they take Taiwan, they're going to take all the chips with them.
Absolutely.
And they're going to send nothing here if we send one sanction. So not only do I think he's going to put out a pandemic, I think the dumbass will put a sanction on them. They'll invade Taiwan, and then China cuts us the fuck off. And then I think we got a real problem. And then with your predictability, I don't know. If you think that's possibly right, I don't know what happens after that.
I think it sounds like it could happen, to be honest with you, particularly now in a broken economy. Because people will start crying and screaming, and Biden will be able to do the same thing he did when he sent our oil reserves to China, which I haven't heard explained so far why he was able to do that. Our oil reserves, right? That, and in addition to that, then he's able to leverage us the same way he is doing with gas prices right now, blaming it on the Russians. Here's an interesting thing, and Tommy, I think you're right, and I think look at the way the Democrats and the liberals in this administration orchestrate things. They always do something and they blame it on somebody else. It's a common thread. They never take accountability for it. They always blame. So if that be the case, then what you're saying is exactly right. He can blame it on China just like he blamed Russia for the oil prices.
Right, but see, I think, I forgot that. And then I think China takes Taiwan. But then I think China aligns with Russia, what is it, Serbia right there, that whole line. Now, China's like the boss, and they'll let Russia have their name Russia, and Serbia have their name Serbia, and Iran is Iran. But China's really the boss. And I think they all align, and they don't mess with us. And then we have a real problem.
I think you're right on that, except for one thing. You know, from my experience studying Putin from his KGB days, right when Rick and I were all playing that game with them, hardball.
They actually, and the news tried to say he's stupid.
Yeah.
Putin's stupid, yeah, right.
I found him to be very calculated, and quite honestly have a lot of admiration for him. I don't have anything against the Russians any more than I have against other people that I know in other countries. And the Russians fought alongside of us in World War II on a number of things, but I think Putin loves the country, his country, so much that I'm not sure he would ever be under the thumb of China, to be honest.
I shouldn't say under, but working together.
They might work together.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
against
exactly.
us.
Well, of course, with this administration, I don't blame him because, look, I mean, we're working against him, you know, in Ukraine right now. And to be honest with you,
we should have stayed the hell out of that.
Well, it's interesting. No one talks about the 7 biolabs that we, the U.S., had in Ukraine that fortunately the Russians took out. I'm not saying war is good, and I'm not saying that, excuse me, a lot of innocent people haven't lost their lives on both sides.
And Baz, but how about how dirty Ukraine was?
Well,
how many times did you guys go there with the nukes and nukes and nukes?
We did.
And nobody wants innocent people to die.
Right.
But this isn't straight A student country here.
No, and I'm not so sure that Putin's is the bad guy in this. You know, to be honest with you, look, Zelensky's got a lot to answer for as well. But I remember working in Ukraine, and I remember some things, particularly out of Kiev, that were pretty criminal.
What's it like over there?
Well, the average people were like the people here. They're lovely people, but the politicians and the system
shit show
was corrupt. There was money laundering out the gazoo over there. Human trafficking was off the charts. It was a country, excuse me, and I think everybody in my old business knows this. It was a country that was used by a lot of globalists to do a lot of not so cool things and keep it under the war. You know,
But nobody wants to talk.
Nobody
about
wants to
that.
talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about Biden's son and Biden and the money they got from the Ukraine
Laptop.
and from China and the laptop.
Can you, real quick, you said the word globalist. I always hear that word. And
Yeah.
I understand it, but can you explain to people out there watching, because you hear the word globalist all the time,
Right.
what that means? Because I don't think people fully understand what the word globalist means.
Sure.
I really don't.
I think the best way to explain globalists is like, let's say you have two clubs.
Yep.
Okay, we have our club, let's say as Americans,
Yep.
and we believe in nationalism and freedom and independence and our country.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's another club full of world leaders and politicians and financial influencers that don't believe in the independence of a country, but they believe in one world order. They believe in a one world government, and they believe that they should head that up and that there should be no middle class. There should just be the elites and the poor. And the poor are subjected to whatever the elites want when they want it. Now, as a globalist, if you're part of that club and that one world order or that one world government, you make all the money, you own all the profits, you own all the commodities, you own all the natural resources, and you can pick and choose and go wherever you want because we push the idea that we are the world, we are a one world. And so what happens is members of the global community, so to speak, now get to decide what happens to you in America because now if they rule in a one world government, you don't have rights under the Constitution. And in fact, the Constitution doesn't mean anything anymore. It gets erased because now there's a global Constitution and we're all going to fit in this together. And thus you have a world socialist system. Did I do it for you?
Yeah. I just want to hear it.
I didn't know what I wasn't quite sure what it
kinda
was
know,
either
but
because you hear it 17 different ways as well.
You hear globalist a lot, but it's good to hear. I understood and I get it. It's just to hear it is, yeah, it's true.
Would you say that right now we're in a depression?
Yeah, the Democrats have managed to get us back into depression.
I think they're fudging that number a little bit.
68s. They've managed to do a lot.
I think they're fudging that GDP a little bit.
I think they are too.
4 months, I think we're really going to feel it
I would agree with you.
because I read history.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay?
Exactly.
And what happens first? The price inflation, prices go up at first. People have a little bit of money left, so they don't really feel it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But about 4 months, even if you do have money, like the people that are rich, you go to the store and there's nothing on the shelf.
That's right.
So whether you have money or don't have money, you can't get anything.
It won't matter.
And then isn't that a depression? Because
That's
you
a
can't
depression.
get shit.
You can't get anything.
And there's if you can't get anything and you got nothing on the shelves,
Well,
the store's closed,
think
right?
If you're not growing your own garden, you're probably going to starve.
I was just going to say that. Think about it. My grandmother, she's passed away, but she's
Sorry to hear about that.
She used to always say, they used to grow their own vegetables. She canned vegetables for the winters. Canned. Literally canned all this food. And grew stuff. I mean, she didn't have cows or anything like that, but think about that. If just about everybody, not everyone, but are depending upon Walmarts and all these places to get their chicken and to buy this and all this type of stuff. If that ever gets cut off, oh boy, bad news.
And it's not like out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm of
And that's what's insane.
We've seen it already.
Yeah.
She grew up, your grandmother would have grown up during the Depression.
Correct.
Yeah, as mine did, and they know what it's like, so they prepared wisely, and we would be wise to do the same right now.
She canned canned vegetables. I mean, jellies, jams for months and months, and she had stocks for like a couple of years.
Yeah,
literally.
She knew.
Homemade wine, everything. God damn.
Yeah, everything you needed.
Exactly, and they were smart because they lived through it, you know.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, the sad thing is that for those people that don't do that now. And it's good that you brought it up, Tommy, because if you're going to prepare, you should prepare now. And I don't care if that's stocking up food or whatever, or growing your garden and getting it ready, because it's coming. In fact, it's almost here. My wife and I were talking about the other day, you know, we don't spend a lot of time out at restaurants. We cook a lot at home. But when we did go out, what used to cost us $30 cost us almost $100.
Yeah.
And we walked out of there going, what is going on
and you
here?
get less food, too.
And you get less food. The spring rolls are like a third the size, right?
You get like a toothpick spring roll, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You know, it's
Now, Baz, you originally went to school for health and fitness.
I did.
And then how did that turn into military?
When I was at the Citadel, I went in the Marine Corps, and I had a ROTC scholarship, and of course I wanted to go in the finest service in the United States, which is the Marine Corps. Of course, let it be known there is nothing better than the United States Marine Corps.
My Uncle Joe passed away also. I said to him the one time, never forget this, went to the, oh God, I'm having a brain fart here. To where you go drink, where all the veterans go drink.
VW.
VW.
Yeah.
And we went there, and my Uncle Joe's there, and I used to bust his balls really good. I go, yeah, Uncle Joe, remember when you used to be in the Marines? He's like, son, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah, there you go.
Sound familiar?
It does. So true. So my dad was a Green Beret, love him to
Wow.
death. Far exceeded anything that I could have ever done. I mean,
That's your
look,
shit there.
yeah,
boy.
he was incredible. He's alive. He's 90.
Oh, great. Great.
Both
great.
my parents are alive, which is great. I'm blessed. And
Wow.
I didn't need a hero. I had my dad and both my mom. But
Green Beret.
Oh, yeah,
Awesome.
Green Beret. So
Badass.
yeah.
That's a badass.
So I had to one-up him. It was like, the only thing I can do is go in the Marine Corps. Buddy, you know? First to fight. So anyway, I went in the Marine Corps, and after that, I was one of the Marine Corps' first counterterrorism officers.
And what's that consist of? Like on a good day, not a boring day.
Well, it's not as flashy as it sounds. Excuse me.
It does sound good.
It does sound great. I was put on a staff at the in Quantico. We had gotten. Let me back up. We had gotten blown up in Beirut. We lost about 222 Marines and Navy there.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so the Marine Corps realized there was a different type of guerrilla warfare that needed to be fought, and we didn't really understand enough about terrorism. And funny, because my grandfather had come from Beirut, right? Married a Native American woman in America. But because of that, everybody thought that I understood the mind of terrorists because I had a somewhat quasi-Middle Eastern background, right?
Yeah. It must have come in your genetics, right?
Must be. Fortunately, I had been studying that for some years prior because it just interested me, PLO, Hezbollah. And so I had a little working knowledge of it, and I got put on this staff to come up with a counterterrorism program for the Staff NCO Academy for the Marine Corps. And so I did that along with a really good staff of Jay Kinsman and Color Sergeant Shanks from the British SAS and a couple other people. So that was the beginning of it. And then I was at the National War College one day, excuse me, listening to a lot of people pontificate on their knowledge of terrorism and stuff. And I went to take a coffee break, and a guy walked up behind me and said, "Hey, Captain Baz," he goes, "I was wondering, would you like to do God's work?" And I was like, turn around, and there's this guy with a CIA badge on his, well, it was just a thing that said CIA, right? And I thought, well, this is weird and spooky, and who is this guy, and what's God's work? And what I didn't know is that's just a code they just used. And he said, excuse me, he said, "We've had our eye on you for a little while." Thank you.
I got one too.
Oh my gosh, thanks a lot. I need
Yeah.
this. He said, "We've had our eye on you for a little while." And he goes, "We like what we see, and wondering if you'd be interested in talking to the CIA about employment." And I was like, well, I don't know. I said, but sounds interesting.
And before we get to the CIA, is
Yeah.
it true that the Army has timeout cards now?
Well, if the Air Force has drag queens now, I'm sure they probably have that too,
Didn't we see that?
Yeah.
We pulled it.
Yeah.
We pulled it up when Tig was in here. I don't know if it was.
Did he
one-
say they
one-
have timeout cards?
Well, it gets a little tough.
I think he
It
said
gets-
Army.
If it gets a little tough, you can
I
hold
for-
the
I
card
forget.
and pause.
Yeah, I think it was Army, right?
I think it was Army.
Yeah, Marine
Yeah.
Corps would never have that.
When you compare, like knowing how it is now,
Yeah.
when you compare boot camp
Yeah.
in the Marines, when you went through it to what it's like now, what would you say?
Well, you know, the standard may have not lowered that much. I think the course is pretty solid, to be honest with you.
Good. I'm glad,
From what
I'm glad to hear
I've
that.
seen, you know, I haven't heard anything to the contrary, to be honest with you. Now, I have heard things about the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. I don't even think the Air Force has boot camp anymore. I think you go in and they give you a blue uniform. You drive a bus maybe, and then they go, okay. I think that's the case. The Air Force is going to kill me. And the Navy, well, I can't even talk about the Navy. So the closest Marine Corps, I mean, the Army would be, especially all the JSOC and Spec Ops guys. I give those guys credit. I mean, you know, and I'm just ragging on them. I have good friends there, but anyway. So what happened was. They asked me if I'd be interested in it, and the guy said, his name was John.
This episode is sponsored by Aurora. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is? For years, this crime rate has been surging and affecting millions of Americans. I'm talking about identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. Yet despite this, those who have had their identity stolen are often shocked when it happens. That's why I'm excited to partner with Aurora, who is sponsoring this video. Aurora is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all into one easy-to-use app. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Protect you and your family from America's fastest-growing crime. Try Aurora for free for 2 weeks and see if you or anyone in your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial today. Go to aurora.com/MSCS. The link is in the description below.
I won't give his last name, even though it was an alias. He was very well dressed. He was the first CIA guy I'd ever met. And he said, look, he said, we'll be in touch. That's the last I heard of him, right? So 2 days later, I get this card on my desk at Staff NCO Academy. It says, go see Colonel Dorman at this address. So I take the card, and it's like literally a block away from where I am in my building. And, you know, in the Marine Corps, it's spit and polished. All the grass is cut, and the buildings are, you know, sharp. And this one building, the grass was like all grown up. The paint was coming off the windows.
You're like, where the hell am I going?
Oh, my gosh, it's like the buildings should be condemned,
like,
right?
What did I do?
Right, and I'm thinking, I must have the wrong place. So I knock on the door, nothing. Knock on it again, nothing. I start to walk away, and then the door opens. It's like kind of, you know, creaky sound, like a haunted house.
Yeah.
And there's this lady in civilian clothes standing there, and she says, Captain Baz, she goes, come in. We've been waiting for you.
Well, I only knocked 7 times.
Yeah, exactly. So I go in, and the inside of the building is immaculate. I mean, it's just like civilianized to some
like
degree.
S4.
Yeah. So I walk in, and she says, Colonel Dorman, who later I came to know as 2 dogs.
I'm afraid to know why.
Me too. I never asked.
You never asked him?
No. It was an old Vietnam.
Yeah, fuck that.
Well, it was a CIA thing, I think. So I walk in, and I go into his office, and all I'm looking at is a big leather chair. And the rest of the office is, you know, bookshelves and, you know, really plush. And I'm looking, and I can see the top of his head, and it's a flat top, white. And I see this trail of cigar smoke. And I go, Captain Baz reporting, sir, as ordered. And he swivels around this chair, and I'm looking at this.
With a big cigar in his mouth?
Big cigar in his mouth. I'm looking at this steel-jawed, steely-eyed Marine of a Marine, right? And he goes, Captain Baz, I'm Colonel Dorman. He says, I understand the CIA's been in touch with you. Now I think I'm really in trouble because I didn't tell anybody, like, you know, about the coffee break. And I said, well, sir. And that's all I said was, well, sir. And he goes, okay. He says, do you remember someplace? I'm trying to remember. It's in the Middle East, 1978, 1979 or something like this. Naval attaché walks across from Beirut, I think, walks across from Hilton Hotel. He's walking across the street, and a car drives by, and 4 terrorists gun him down in the streets. And I'm trying to follow the story because I remembered the incident, right? And I'm thinking that the guy in the incident died. And he said, I said, yes, sir, I remember that story. He said, but did you hear the rest of the story? And I'm like, now what's going on? He goes, that guy got up. He pulled his Uzi out of his briefcase. He stood in the middle of the street, and when they came back, he gunned them all down, every single stinking terrorist in that car.
With his Uzi.
And then he walked over to the Hilton Hotel and said, get me a doctor. I'm listening to the story, and I'm thinking, he goes, that was me.
Oh, shit, I knew it. I knew it.
I worked for the CIA.
I was going to say, I bet that was him, but I wanted you to
It was
finish.
him.
It was him.
And he said, and I'm here to ask you, boy, do you want to work for the CIA?
Oh my God.
I'm looking at, now I'm taking it all in, and I'm trying to be the brave captain that I'm supposed to be in the Marine Corps. And he goes, you could travel the world, and they'll pay you to do it.
Put yourself in some dangerous situations.
That too. He didn't
mention
that. He didn't mention that part.
Yeah, free vacations, right?
Yeah. So I'm just standing there, and he says, I said, well, sir, I said, I think I need probably a little time to think about this. And he goes, you do that. You do that. He goes, you're dismissed. And so I turn around, and I wanted to walk to the door, and I open the door, and all of a sudden I stop. And I just turn around. I said, sir, if you were me, what would you do? And he goes, why, boy. Oh, yeah. He goes, why, boy, I'd join the CIA. And then he just swivels around in his chair, and I'm looking at the same thing I looked at before, the top of his head, the trail of smoke coming up, and the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I'm in Ground Branch at the agency.
Now,
That's how I got in.
Now, how was the boot camp?
Which one?
I thought first to get into the CIA, or they torture you, right? Like they mind fucking everything else.
No, I went into, when I got into Ground Branch, I went in, and I was gone on my first assignment within 4 weeks.
Oh, they didn't mess with you or anything, or try to.
They
ground
attached
you?
me to a couple of guys. No, I came to.
Oh, you got lucky.
I came there with enough training for paramilitary ops for them to attach me to a couple other guys, and they kind of vetted me out in the field and stuff. And I guess I must have done okay. I think we were always training, but at that time, there were literally only about 24 of us that I remember for the whole world.
Wow.
So.
And how many are there now?
Oh my gosh, probably 200 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers. I've been told by some guys that were still there, I thought it was like 200, and that may be less now because we're not in Afghanistan and other places. But that was like 24 guys. I think that number's correct for the whole world. So a lot of times we'd be sent out by just single or by two people at a time. You go out and you'd handle one operation, and then you turn around and do laundry and then hand out for another operation. So it's one of the reasons why the divorce rate was so high, at least in Ground Branch and Maritime and probably Air Branch as well.
Because you're constantly gone.
You're constantly gone. And I remember they did discourage you from getting married. And those who didn't listen ended up in divorce, oftentimes, because it was pretty grueling. But it would have been nice if we had 150 or 200 guys, because we could have spread the load out a little bit. But I have to say that, and Rick Prado was one of the 24. I remember when the whole Iran-Contra thing was, Rick was in the Yamalis, and we were at Agokati from time to time. So we were all involved in that whole war that was going on with Nicaragua and other things. And so oftentimes many of us just went out and then came back. You just did your job, and, there was some loss of life from time to time, but you didn't have a really big support mechanism at that time. And in fact, it was just the opposite. Oftentimes we were having to struggle with the divisions or headquarters for things just like something stupid like your per diem. They got to the point where they were actually, you would get so much money for a hotel. And so if they gave you a sleeping bag because your assignment was in the middle of the jungle, they considered that government quarters provided. So
you're sleeping in that's your hotel, right?
That's your hotel. And so you didn't get that money, So a lot of guys were asked to do a lot with no compensation, but they did it because they loved the country, they believed in what they were doing, and it was a job that everybody came back and didn't talk about. You know, you just did what you did. Like,
Do you remember your first mission? The first mission that you completed successfully?
Oh my gosh.
Or just the mission that you completed successfully that you can talk about without getting in trouble and use
No.
Fred. No? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah, sure.
You know, there are a lot of places around the world we went. I don't really talk about them.
Sure.
For a couple of reasons. One, you know, not because you signed a secrecy agreement, and not because I probably could talk about some of them, I guess. I just
you have integrity.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to do that right. And also, there are some operations where I don't want to disclose because I don't want some foreign intelligence service coming back for revenge and going, "Oh, you were the guy."
Yeah.
And then, you know, there are countries out there that have long memories,
Oh, yeah.
and they will.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to history.
They'll come back and
if you
just to
read
show a
history,
point.
yeah.
You know,
They'll wait 50
I mean,
years.
the Russians are good at that. You know, they'll wait forever, and then
And China.
somebody will get off, and they'll go, "That's for what you did 35 years ago."
Yeah.
You know, just to send a message. So
Well, how
I
about
think
this?
it's a little safer not to.
Right. So, okay. So when you're in another country
Right.
and you're looking for a mark, what is, and I asked Rick this too, when you're looking for somebody, when is enough flags to make a move? You know, you have this guy, you think it's this guy, you're not sure, you have assets that are saying it's this guy, this is, you know, the cell or whatever it may be. When is there enough flags where you go and you make a move and you say, okay, we're positive, boom?
Yeah, a lot of intel has to be gathered on the outside, and that has to be disseminated back not only to headquarters, CIA, but some of it has to be disseminated to the White House. It depends on what the oversight committee wants to do. It depends on who's read into the operation, and what approvals will be handed down. Like, for example, with bin Laden, you know, that approval went all the way to the White House. It had to be approved by the president and other people. There are minor cases that don't always require that approval, but that's after a lot of intel has been collected over a course of time and everybody has greenlit it, so to speak. So you know that if that individual is not stopped, you know, and that's certainly once all diplomacy has been exhausted. And then you call in the president's secret hand, so to speak, which is a term that they've used for guys like, a lot of guys like Rick and other people like that, and where we were. Then that operation will initiate and business will be taken care of. But it still has to be green lit. You know, it won't be like you're in the field. For example, in my book, you'll read, I remember Osama bin Laden was literally probably 50 feet from me and a case officer.
50 feet from you?
Yeah.
Phew.
And we didn't even know who he was. He was in the back of a Toyota truck. He was in Mogadishu. There was a crowd. He was parading around like the great Messiah. And Rich and I were standing there, and I said, who's the guy? You know, everybody's waving and shouting and everything. And Rich goes, that's a guy named Osama bin Laden. He's Aidid's bagman. Now, had I known the future, I guess I didn't do so well in predictability, right? I could have taken the shot.
Wow.
Chances, would I have taken the shot? And could I have gotten away? Who knew? You don't know. You know, I have no idea. But now you get that close. And so I couldn't have, even if I thought that he was going to create problems, I probably couldn't have taken that shot.
Without all, because you wouldn't have had all the green lights.
Like when I was in the Marine Corps, it's really funny. Some of my Marines went across the fence line through the Cuban minefields and put American flags on their machine gun bunkers.
I bet they love that.
And I got called on the carpet for that. And Colonel Navadale, I love him to death. He was so gracious. He said, I think your Marines did this. And I was like, sir, my guys would never do something like that. Only to find out it was my guys, and then having to go back to Colonel Navadale and go, sir, in their defense, isn't this what we train Marines to do? And he didn't say anything, but he was gracious in his decision because the Hill, Washington, wanted to crucify these 4 Marines. They wanted to make an example out of them, you know, for going on the Cuban property. But what's interesting is that after that incident happened, and we were trying to make sure it wasn't an international incident, I was literally out on a guard post. I think it was post number 3 or 4 with one of my Marines. And lo and behold, there's Fidel Castro standing within rifle shot of me along with an ABC reporter. I don't remember if it was Dan Rather or who it was.
And when they always say post, post 1, post 2, what does that mean?
It's literally a big post, an observation post, an OP.
Okay.
There's a bunker underneath the bottom that's cement.
Oh, holy shit.
And these are along the fence line, and they're early warning posts, so that if the Cubans were to ever get through the minefield, we would know, and we'd have to defend the base or whatever it may be.
And this is all in your book, right?
Oh, yeah, it's in the book. Yeah,
something bigger than overthrowing small governments.
Yeah. So there I am standing there.
Baz, just real quick.
Yeah.
How many pages was this originally?
I think it's 582 pages or something.
But originally, before they cut it down. I always ask that question.
No, I think it was pretty much on target.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. It was big when we finished. My wife did the editing on it. She and her mother, they did a great job. It was pretty picture perfect. It's the blessing of having a mom and a mom-in-law.
Right now at Barnes & Nobles, you can get 50% off. Go there and get that book.
There you go. So it's a good book about a lot of CIA stuff and how I made the transition from the spy world and to the humanitarian world.
Yeah.
But Castro was standing there, and my Lance Corporal goes,
wow, can you believe Castro's right there, Rob?
Yeah, and he goes,
Christ.
Sir, you could take the shot right now. He said it. I literally took the weapon and aimed in, and for a brief moment, thought I could rid the world of Fidel Castro. But all of a sudden, I came to my senses and realized nothing was greenlit on that. That's not my job. And I'd probably go to prison because he's a head of state or something like that.
And start a whole bunch of shit.
And so I didn't do it.
Yeah. Start a whole
I'd have been in
shit
prison.
show.
I wouldn't have. I thought I wasn't going to be a hero. Who would have known? Because the Senate definitely and Congress would have made me an example of that. But you never know.
Now, out of all the countries that you went to, what was your favorite country that you enjoyed being there? Although you were on a mission, but you liked the country.
Well, I love America.
So, I mean, when you're
foreign country.
Yeah, foreign country.
I loved them all.
Right.
I wish there was one. They all had their own unique thing, their own unique danger, to be honest with you. And I think it's safe to say, without sounding spicy or whatever, and I think Rick and others would agree, whenever we were sent out on an operation, there was always the threat of something. Number one, they were covert operations. So just getting caught in somebody else's country as a spy is usually punishable by death. And there was always questionable in those days whether somebody would come get you out or not. Chances were it wasn't going to happen, whether it was a deniable operation or not. So I think we maintained our tradecraft fairly well, but it was always about staying in the shadows, because every country had its own deceptive craters. There was always the foreign intel entity that you had to be aware of, and even though you got in a country under a alias and a different cover story, you never got comfortable enough to believe that they really believed it. So,
right.
If you thought at any moment, like, I'm clear. Once I got through customs, we're good to go. No one's ever going to, it wasn't that way. And you
probably would have been dead if you would have thought like that.
I think you're right.
Too much ego.
Yeah, too much ego, right. I think humility plays a big part in staying alive, and never underestimating the opposition, but at the same time sticking to your tradecraft and doing what you do best, without thinking you're James Bond.
Right.
It doesn't work that way,
No, out of the countries, which is the most vicious you've been to? I know you love them all, but if you were to be a spy and get caught, which is the most vicious?
I think the Congos sucked. To be honest with you. I don't think I'd want to get caught. I don't want to end up in one of their jails.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
The Congo, it sticks out in my memory. For some reason, I mean, it could have happened in South America, but, you know, there's that whole Latin flair thing, you know, so at least you could, like, eat tacos maybe while you're in jail. But in Congo, you're eating nothing but worms, buddy, I'm telling you. So, yeah, I think the Congo was probably the nastiest.
That's the most protein you're getting, right, is those worms.
Now, if we have
CIA
operatives all over the world, right? We don't know where they're at, but you guys may know where that. We don't know as general public where they're displaced across the world.
Yeah.
How many people? I think we asked Rick this question too. How many, off the top of your head, just a total wild guess, of other countries, like I'd say a China or Russia, have people implanted in our country? Do you think?
What did Rick say?
I can't remember. I don't remember.
He said a lot.
Yeah.
He said a lot.
Okay. What's a good answer for that?
Just a guesstimate. Like, I'm not saying you have to say there's actually 250,
yeah.
but
he was
a good amount.
Richard said that there was a shit ton
I
of
think
cells.
every country in the world probably has someone from their service, their intel service, in our country.
Mm-hmm.
So how many countries do we have in the world?
Yeah, a lot. So, yeah.
A lot.
A good amount.
So I think a lot. And I mean, the Russians, remember, what was the 8, 9, 10, 11 Russian spies got kicked out of the country
Correct,
a few years ago?
Yeah.
So, you know, they were here successfully. And how long were they here and how much intel did they gather? You know, talking about the Chinese, oh my gosh, it's embarrassing. The Chinese have saturated this country. They've probably stolen every bit of technology we have. And yet we don't pay attention to it. And one of the ways they're able to do it, and I think it can be said in a question, and it is, why do we let anybody in a foreign country own property in America? Yeah. Why? I don't know the answer to that. At least if you go to the Middle East, maybe you can buy property, but you're only 50% of the, or 49% of the owner, and it has to be somebody from that nationality or that country that has to be 51% or something like that.
They said during this whole, past couple of years of real estate, how crazy it's been, just selling homes at like, $400,000 over asking price, and cash buyers, and a lot of cash buyers.
Yeah.
That a lot of those cash buyers, I'm saying this as what I've heard, not that it's true, but a lot of outside money being funneled in to buy up properties from foreign countries.
Entities? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that, I think if we were able to investigate into our colleges, how many colleges the Chinese actually own. How many universities
that's scary to
took loans from Chinese banks.
Now China owns them, basically.
Pretty
actually, they own them.
So if you own them, then you can put your own socialist agenda in there. Your own socialist professor, which, by the way, if socialist professors really believed in what they're preaching, then why aren't they working for free?
Right.
Right. No, they're not. Hypocrisy once again, so.
Well, just like the iPhone, it's so stupid to think. It says, made in the USA. No, the parts are in China. They're assembled in the USA.
Yeah.
To think that China isn't putting something in that iPhone, iPad, Samsung that's collecting all that data.
Well, you saw the TikTok stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I was telling you, I'm a coder by nature.
Okay.
TikTok, when you look at the code, not the website, the code's like behind it, it takes everything. It downloads your messages, your calls, your contacts, everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying this. They don't give a shit about me or him or whatever, but they use the data.
Yeah.
The data to see what Americans do. That's all they need. And all the cell phones are made over there. And all anybody does is play on the cell phone.
What part of this are we not getting? Wake up and smell the coffee. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Why not shift it all over here? And Trump was trying to.
That's right. And
he was giving them incentives to do it.
And nobody cares until all of a sudden they're on your back doorstep.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, that'll never happen. Yeah. Oh, really? Look at all the things that are happening now where people went, that'll never happen, and it's happening.
They fucking know everything.
Yeah, of course.
China knows every damn thing because of that phone. And everything's made over there because it's cheaper. Yeah, like you said in the beginning, back to money.
People are selling their souls.
Selling their souls, you're right.
That's
you're
what
damn right.
Yeah. Bathroom break?
Yep, sure.
Quick.
All right, boss. So then you decide to leave, in 96, you leave the CIA, right? And then you go to work for Pen, Cloak, and Dagger. Production company, right? Entertainment.
Right.
Now, how do you go from CIA, Marine, CIA, to this?
So
that's a hell of a move.
It is. So during my time in Mogadishu, Somalia, I lost a friend there, Larry Friedman. He was a friend to us all.
Sorry to hear
Guy
that.
called Super Jew, great sniper. Yeah, he actually took my place on that operation. I was scheduled to go out with John, another buddy of mine, and at the last week before we departed, I had to go to a court case because my grandparents had somebody had broken into them about 2 years later and was going to get out of prison if somebody in the family didn't come and testify on their behalf. So I had to go to South Carolina and do that, and Larry came to me and said, "Hey, can I take your place?" And I said, "Sure." Anyway, yeah, he got killed in a landmine
Again, sorry to hear that, man.
in Badera, yeah. So anyway, I thought about that a little bit once I got out of the agency. I thought about it for a long time. That and a couple other things. And so I decided to take a little hiatus and get on my Harley and, excuse me, take a little trip. And I did. I ended up in Tucson, Arizona, and while I was there, a lady walked up to me and said, "You should be on TV."
How relaxing is that on the Harley?
That's great.
You just think, right?
You
I used to
you
have
just
a
think,
bike.
you know,
Yeah,
you just
think.
drive, wind in
Yeah.
your face, you just
Yeah.
think. And so she said, "You should be on TV." And I thought, what is this? Her name was Nancy Good, wonderful lady. And she said, "I'm friends of a casting director named Holly Heyer, and we're looking for somebody like you for this TV show." And I'm still thinking it's just a joke. And she says, "Well, just go to lunch with me." So I went to lunch with her and her son. Excuse me, a really well-known artist named Dean Hansard, great guy. And I met this casting director, and she said, "Yeah, we're shooting a TV show here called Legend with Richard Dean Anderson and John Delancey and a bunch of other people, and Michael Greenberg, and is producing this. And I think we could use somebody like you. What do you do?" And I said, "I'm just on the bike, just traveling." You know?
I'm on my
So-
Harley.
She said, "Well, I was wondering if you could read a few lines for me." I didn't even know what she was talking about. And she said, "Look, here's a script. I'll be this person and you be this person, and we'll just go back and forth." So I did. And she goes, "Wow." She goes, "Okay, I think we found the guy we're looking for, right?" So she said, "How would you like to be on a TV show?" And I'm like,
And again, you're still like, what the hell's
I'm
going
not
on?
sure
right?
sure
Yeah.
what's going on, right?
It's like
So-
you're getting punked, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I did get the part, but because I wasn't Screen Actors Guild, I didn't even know what Screen Actors Guild was. You know, they casted it out of Hollywood, and Michael Greenberg said to me, I met the executive producer, and he said, "Look," he goes, "I know you're just a biker and you're just traveling." He goes, "But how would you like to work on the show? And while you're just hanging out here in Tucson?" And I thought, well, why not, you know? So I did. I signed on as a PA, production assistant. Pretty low in the ring. Get to hand a lot of coffee to a lot of people. But you get to
Learn.
know the actors really well, and you get to learn. And so by the time I finished the first season, I had been a PA, second assistant director, and got my first role, my first speaking part, as a reporter on the TV show. Excuse me. And then I had written a screenplay about some stuff that I thought was pretty good. And Michael Greenberg said, "Yeah, this is pretty good." He goes, "How'd you like to be a writer in Hollywood?" And I said,
Your mind must have been spinning.
"Oh my gosh." He goes, "Look, I'll put you in my guest house. I'll get you a job at Paramount." He goes, and then that was like, you know, before, well, it was like a couple months before the production ended. And one day he called me in his office, and he goes, "You're not just a biker." He goes, "You're something else." He goes, "You have too much leadership. You have this thing going on, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "I want to know who you are.
And you're still thinking, I'm just I just left the agency and
Right,
I'm a Marine,
So I told him, I just said, well, I said, I used to work for the government and I'm just clearing my head. And I said, I've got a nonprofit that I want to rescue kids. And I said, I haven't figured out how I'm going to make the money to do that yet. And I said, but that's who I am. And he goes, you worked for the government. He goes, like the CIA or something. And I just
like,
laughed.
yeah,
I
you're
said,
allowed
well,
what you're about to say.
I said, well, yeah, actually. And his mouth dropped, and I said, he goes, well, last time I heard that from somebody, he says it was Steven Seagal. And I went, I don't remember seeing Steven Seagal there. I said, he may have. I said, I just don't remember seeing him. And I said, so that's what I did, and I don't really talk about it. And I said, but that sounds like a great idea. I said, you mean I can learn a different trade? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, look, he said, you could make money to go rescue kids and have it, if you do it right, he goes, have that freedom to do that in this industry, the film industry. And it all made sense. And the next thing you know, I'm moving to California. And he got me a job at Paramount Pictures, and he and I wrote a screenplay together called Gentlemen of the Shade. And one thing led to another, and then in my career in the film industry blossomed. And so I started Pen, Cloak, and Dagger, Pen being the writer, and Cloak and Dagger being my espionage career. And I started my own production company and publishing company at that stage, and spent 38 some years being able to do just that, be in the film industry, producing and writing.
And you were a technical advisor for Jake 2.0, right?
I was. I almost forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
You can't forget that. Now, what does a technical advisor do? What the hell does that mean? If basically the writers are trying to create reality, they want it to be true, as true as it can be. And someone that may have that skill, for example, let's say there's a cop show. Well, they'll hire a police officer to make sure everything is technically correct. Are they wearing their uniforms correct? Is this the language they would speak? Is this how they arrest people? That's all it is, really. Right. So you would never think that, right? Would you ever think that that's what it takes? So basically, you're making it as real as possible.
Right. Yeah. Because when I worked on the
a lot of stuff
show called The Agency. Actually, it's really funny. There's the CIA sent someone to the set.
Really?
It's really funny. We were shooting. It was the agency was CBS, and we were in Culver City, and I think it was the executive producer. Yeah, it was Sean Cassidy. Yeah, Sean. You remember David Cassidy and Sean Cassidy?
Yeah, I remember Sean
Partridge
Cassidy.
Family and all those guys.
Yeah.
His mom was in it. Well, so Sean was was a great guy. Loved him to death. And he came out on the set and he said, "There's somebody who wants to talk to you, and they say they're from the CIA." And I went, "Okay." So I stepped off over by his craft services, and there was this guy, and he pulled out his credentials, and he goes, "I'm from your old organization." He goes, he said, "A lot of what you guys are putting on the screen is very, very close to your old life and what happens out there." He goes, "We just want to caution you." And I said, "It's very close. You mean, like, has it crossed the line?" And he goes, "No." And then I said, "Well, when it crosses the line, you come back to me and we can have a talk." I said, "But as it is now, I'm going to get as close to the line as possible without disclosing any sources or methods or tradecraft or whatever it goes, okay?" And I said, "And the rest of this stuff," I said, "you're going to have to go talk to the writers because it's all open source and they're pulling it all out." I said, "I just kind of keep it clean for them. In fact, I do the job so that we don't have any problems at the agency." And he looked at me, and I gave him an example, and he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Well, it's good that you're here." And I said, "I think so." So, you know, we had that talk, you know.
And then you have hundreds of hours on, you know, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, and you were an analyst for MSNBC for a while, right?
I was for a little while, yeah.
Now, when they do that, do they send you to a remote studio?
I did. I went to mostly off of, I went to a remote studio off of Mobile?
I always wondered
off of Motor Avenue.
Because it looks so real.
Yeah,
half
I was
time.
in most of the time Motor Avenue, right in Culver City is where I went.
Now, are all the stations the same? Do they use the same? Do they share studios, or they each have their own one for you to go to?
I went to different studios.
Yeah.
Wherever they would say, show up here at this time, and the people there at the studio were nice, and they'd say, okay, we know you're coming, here we go, and they were great. And, you know, it's you do your thing, and I think it's really funny because I no longer. It's funny. My career as, you know, a news analyst, so to speak, ended when MSNBC. I was on there with MSNBC and another guy that had retired from the agency, and they asked me a question about ISIS and Obama, and they asked this guy a question, and he like went through this whole rigmarole, you know, but like 10 minutes. And well, it wasn't 10 minutes, but it seemed like 10 minutes forever. And I'm listening to this guy, and I'd never met him in the agency before, but I knew he was greasing the skids because he was like floating this for everything he could get, because it was like, this is what he wanted for a career. I didn't want it for a career. I just wanted to tell the truth. So they asked me a question about ISIS, and I started down this road to explain why we hadn't stopped ISIS. And then I put the brakes on, and I took a beat, and I finally just said, look, you want to get rid of ISIS? You get rid of Obama. And everybody was quiet. But it was true.
Yeah. And
we know it now true because look what Trump did to ISIS in what, 6 months?
Yeah. He went up and whispered in his ear, hey, buddy.
Yeah,
the guy's dead.
So after
at dinner, right? Wasn't that dinner?
So after that, MSNBC never asked me back. And you know what? I don't really care.
And you're on Geraldo, who still has that damn mustache.
Yeah. He's got it?
He's on the 5 now on Fox, and he still has that mustache that curls up.
That's his brand.
That's his brand.
Yeah.
He almost got whacked. He almost got whacked a long time ago.
I heard.
Yeah. He was real close. Real close. So. Did you ever get on the O'Reilly Factor?
I don't believe so.
I was just curious.
No,
I used to watch it. They kicked him out.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is no matter who I get asked to join, I think my wife, she's really smart. She says, look, you got to be careful with what you say on TV. She goes, and she knows this because I go, do I look like the kind of guy that cares what people think about me? No, I don't care. I just care about the truth. That's it. You know, I guess I'm like that with Trump. You know, it's like I like him because
she might be trying to keep you alive.
Well, she is trying to keep me alive. And I just tell, look, God wants me to go. I'm going, and that's about it. But you know, it's like I don't really care what people think about me. I mean, I care that people like me and that they know I'm a good American and that, you know, we rescue kids. I like those things. But when it comes to all of these woke organizations or all this stuff that's happening, I don't really care. You know, I'm an American. I know my history. I know the Constitution. I know what it takes to preserve freedom. And I don't really give a rat's ass what the LGBTQXYZ thinks or BLM or Antifa or the next liberal organization that wants to mouth off. I don't really care.
With me, the problem with the news, even when it was somewhat legit, they would say, Baz, what do you think about China? And you start to explain, what about China? Sorry, hard cut.
That's right.
You can't even, I mean, how are you going to answer a question like that in 60 seconds?
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have frustrated you?
It happened a few times, you know, and somehow I managed to still get it out in a different way. You know, I'd wait till they asked me the next question, and then I would jump back to the question that they cut me off on. Yeah. I'd go back, and then I would like spit it out really quick. And you could see them because they're like getting frustrated and like, no.
But you're beating them to the punch.
Totally.
What was the easiest network to deal with?
Dan Abrams.
Really?
He was great. Yeah. And I don't know Dan personally, but it's really interesting. We did a interview, and at the end of it, he said, he goes, I'm listening to your name. He goes, Bazzel Baz. He goes, that's the coolest name I've ever heard. If I had to change my name, I'd change it to Bazzel Baz. I never forgot that. He was gracious. He reported fairly. He didn't cut me off. He was very professional. Now, I don't know where Dan is nowadays. I don't even know if he's on the networks anymore. But
I think that's all you could want, though, right? To not be cut off, be respected,
yeah,
and be fair.
Yeah.
Not be this way or that way. Just tell the news the way it is.
Right.
And if you're going to ask somebody a question, let them answer it.
Yeah.
Your commercial break's still there.
Yeah.
Let them answer it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, we take a look at all the news media, and I don't think we're at a point where it's like this network's biased or this network's biased. I think we're literally at a point now where the only news station that's telling the truth is Fox. I used to not say that. I used to say, well, they have their entertainment industries, and they all have a little flair of entertainment. But I used to think it was, I could go through and look at all the different news feeds and just go, oh, yeah, maybe. Now I'm at a point where I listen to CNN or MSNBC or whatever, and it's just like bold-faced lies. It's far left. It's skewed that way. I mean, they don't. And I listen to Fox, and not because I like Fox. I just like the truth. And I take what Fox says, and I go out and do my research, and I go, wow, these guys looks like they're telling the truth about this kind of stuff.
I think they're all in cahoots, but I think out of all of them, Fox is the most truth. But I think they're all in cahoots because what was weird to me is all of a sudden, all of them stopped going to Ukraine. And in my opinion...
We were just talking about that yesterday. What do you think that's about?
I think it's because it makes Biden look bad. It makes him look bad. Because it's
never
war.
thought about that,
it's
but
war.
I think
you got
you're right.
citizens dying. Now all of a sudden, before it was every 2 seconds. You got that guy, you got 17 guys over there. They're going there every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And the only time they're cutting off was for the Johnny Depp case.
Do you think it's that, or do you think that, just spitballing here, the only thing they can report is the same thing every day?
I think
you can only report so much war.
But,
we learned that about Vietnam.
Yeah, but all the stations don't do it. All of them don't go to Ukraine. They might mention Ukraine once or twice a day. All of them. There's a reason for that.
There is a reason. I wonder what it is.
If it's one, okay. Two, okay. But when they're all not going to Ukraine anymore, somebody got a paycheck because, in my opinion, because it's making Biden look bad because it's war. And citizens are dying, whether
that can make a lot of
sense. It's just
sense.
the way it is. So you stay away from that, and you go to, raiding, hitting Mar-a-Lago or, January 6th or this case, that case, whatever case, this missing person now. Why do you think all these people are missing?
Yeah.
Well, if you have 10 million people coming in the border every day, it's probably going to happen.
Well, we're going to see crime escalate beyond anything we've ever seen. And interesting enough, and I talked to our law enforcement partners, mostly our local and state law enforcement officers, and they already know that they are ill-equipped to handle MS-13. They already know that they're ill-equipped to handle the flood of immigrants that come from, not all, but a majority of them from a world of crime where you did things in the street just to survive. And they aren't going to have the capacity to detain these people for crimes, and the system's broken and whatever it's going to be. I remember our good friend of ours at ICE, I can remember the day he called me and he said, we just rounded up, I thought he said 30 illegal aliens. And he said, we just got a call from Washington that said, let them all go. I said, like, just let them go? He goes, yeah. He goes, we have them in a detainment facility. I said, where are you letting them go? Like back across the border? He goes, no. We just opened the door and they said, let them go. And out in the street they went.
Now, what do you think they're going to do? They have no money. They have nowhere to go. They're going to commit crime. They have to. There's no choice. They have no choice but to commit crime.
Yeah.
How are you going to live and eat?
How are you going to live and eat?
You have to. There's no choice.
So it's a shame. So in reality, because of that, we're doing them an injustice by making more homeless people. We're coming across the border, and we're not preparing. We can't. And in addition to that, we're giving people free medical. Illegal aliens, we're giving them free medical. Americans can't even get free medical. I'm not sure actually we want free medical. That's a big socialist thing. But what are we doing now? And what's interesting about this, and it doesn't infuriate enough Americans, it's like, where do you think all that money's coming from? The taxpayers.
Of course it is.
The taxpayers. So when our taxes keep going up over and over and over,
it's to pay for everybody else's shit, all the people that they let in.
That's exactly right. And how long can we sustain that?
Not
before
long.
It breaks your bank account or my bank account or your bank account. Just think about it. It's inevitable.
And then it goes back to what you said in the beginning. You have no choice then but to depend on the government. Unless you move the hell out of here. Where are you going to go?
Exactly. Unless, of course, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, which is, you hinted to this, I think. What will people do when that happens? And I think that people will be fed up with it. And I think that people in this country will do what they did in the French Revolution.
I think so.
I think, and what's interesting, I think the Democrats and the liberals and this administration underestimate the resolve of the American people, American patriots, and I think because of their arrogance and their need for control and greed, I think they're blinded to the fact that if and when the American people cross the line, they will be relentless. And they're gonna go after people, and they know. Here's the interesting thing: there are enough Americans in here that know where every one of those people live. Call it what you want. Call it civil war. Call it revolution. Call it retribution. You can call it anything you want to make it a crime. Just because you make it a crime doesn't mean that people aren't going to go do it.
When enough people can't feed their families, when enough people don't have anywhere to live. Yes. Some might just sit still, but there's going to be a lot of guys
that aren't going to
and women that are not going to sit still, and they got nothing to lose.
That's exactly
because
right.
At that point, as we said, you have nothing to lose.
That's
so
right.
What are you going to do? Live poor, not eat, nothing to do? You know, everything's shot.
Right.
So when you have nothing to lose, you do crazy things.
That's exactly right. And the government,
I think they're underestimating that.
They're underestimating that. What the quick fix will be is the situation, the economy has fallen. It's no fault of our own, and we're going to save the day. We're going to help you so that you don't have to starve. And again, they're underestimating because people in this country have a history of living free and working with their own hands and making their own money and living their life the way they want to live their life with their liberty and their freedoms, that they're not going to fall for that. You know, and they may think they're going to fall for it. They're not. They're going to go, I don't want your handout. I want my job back. I want this and I want this. And because you are standing in the way of that, you know you are a threat to my family and my livelihood and whatever it may be, and they're going to take action. And that in itself is what we're going to see on a massive individual level. And so much to the point, and it's what scares me, because it won't be fair to people, but if you're a Democrat, you're going to be a target. If you're a socialist, you're going to be a target. If you're a liberal, you're going to be a target. If you're a supporter of this administration, you could end up being a target, as I've seen it unfold in third world countries. Again, with the predictability outcome, as I talked about earlier, these are the things that I discussed with law enforcement, stuff like that, and it said, look, I'm not advocating this. I'm saying this is probably what's going to happen. And you're going to point the finger at a lot of people and good citizens of this country that are trying to live and not die each day. You're going to try to make them look like bad people, and they're never going to see it as I'm a bad person, because they are not going to fall under a tyrannical government. They're not going to fall under a socialist system. And they're going to take up arms, and they're going to do other stuff. And that's one of the reasons why the government's so bent on getting rid of people's weapons.
Yeah.
In their Second Amendment
rights. Because like
you can't control people.
You can't control people.
Exactly.
Because, like we keep saying, when that happens, they're going to say, well, when did this start? Well, it started when the left got in. Yeah. And then all the blame is going to go to the left. And like you said, if you're over there, and when that time comes, because people aren't, even if there's a Republican in trying to fix it or whatever it may be,
right,
they're going to remember that this all started with Biden.
And
his people.
Exactly. They won't remember Obama or Bush.
No.
Who was all part of the same club.
It will all be Biden.
It'll all be Biden.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in that, is that we're already seeing in the country, sadly, we're already seeing something that happened during World War II. When Hitler started to take over, we literally had neighbors turning neighbors in. Those Jews. Yeah, I have some Jews that live around the corner. And we had Jews turn Jews in. We had family members turn family members into the Nazi party, right?
George Soros, right?
Yeah.
He did.
That fucking guy.
Yeah. And even now, so now we're even seeing in America, we're having liberals and Democrats go, oh, my neighbor, he's a conservative. And by the way, he has guns. I know in Colorado, in Boulder County, in Superior, and all those places, we already have people going, with the red flag laws.
Yeah.
Like, my neighbor's a veteran, and he could be mentally unstable. You should take his guns away. Huh. And they're turning people in already. Now, what do you think that fuels? It's interesting about that whole gun thing. We don't make sober drivers. Because a drunk driver kills someone in their car, we don't take a car away from a sober driver. Same thing with guns. That's what they're trying to do with guns. There's a lot of people that own guns that are going to protect you from crime. And by the way, crime's going to increase over the next 5 to 10 years because of the border situation, and people are already starting to see it. But yet we still have that same thing that happened in World War II. We're starting to get, the far left is literally starting to try to rat out their neighbors because they don't like them. Now,
who the fuck rats out your neighbor?
Well, conservatives, I never find any conservatives
when I was growing up,
ratting
I
out
never
people.
did that.
No.
I mean, it's your neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Even or anything, you don't say anything.
That's right. So when that starts happening, and people, they do it now. Like I saw this, saw the thing with the FBI. They put out that it leaked out on their. Did you see that about? These are if you see these flags or these symbols,
Oh yeah.
this is a chance. These are considered domestic terror, like the Betsy Ross flag.
I didn't see it.
Oh yeah, did you see that stuff?
Yeah.
Like the the old rattlesnake with "Don't tread on me."
Yeah,
That's a
All dates all the way back to our history. The Betsy Ross flag dates back to our
terrorist.
history.
Yeah, they call it domestic terrorist flags.
are you serious?
Yeah.
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 So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to get all those flags and
Put 'em all
no,
over-
you're going to start a fire.
You and John put them all around.
Right.
all
I'm
10.
going to send them to Rick Prado and go, Rick, put all these flags up in your house quick. But then there were some things like I think not the Promise Keepers. Who's the other group?
Oath keepers.
Oath Keepers.
The
Yeah.
Oath Keepers.
They had the Oath Keepers thing, all those things. So these are people that at one time they love the country and they're just are great patriots to some degree. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't somebody in there that's probably a rotten apple. I'm not saying that. But, we have that. But all of a sudden, it leaked out. And now, if you have that flag, and so now we got people going, oh, my neighbor has a Betsy Ross flag. I got a buddy of mine in Colorado. He's got a Betsy Ross flag. And he flies it on the top of his store. And we love it because it's history. He's a big history buff. It's like American Revolution. I remember that, and I remember this. He just studies history, right? And I think he's got one of the "Don't Tread on Me" flags, that kind of thing. And I was laughing with him. I said, well, let me know when the FBI comes and kicks your door in, because that's probably going to happen. And
It's just like, why can't people just be themselves? Why can't people just
Yeah.
be them?
yeah,
Without the
exactly.
bullshit.
Yeah, well, because there's an agenda.
Yeah.
And the agenda is a left agenda.
Stupid question.
I don't know how we got left and right and all of this stuff, to stay in the middle and be a good patriot. But almost now, and it's interesting with some three-letter agencies and other people, to believe in the Constitution, to salute the flag, to say the Pledge of Allegiance, all the things that built our country, they look upon it like it's wrong.
Like it's wrong. Yeah.
And it's not wrong. It's right. They're wrong. And we have to have enough people stand up and go, you're wrong. You don't know history. You don't know the country. And if you're not going to support the Constitution, then get the heck out of Dodge,
Well, it's funny. I don't know if it's off subject or not, but my kids play football. My youngest son, we were headed to his scrimmage. Not his scrimmage. He scrimmaged the day before. We're seeing the older kids scrimmage, right?
Right.
14-year-old scrimmage. So we're walking the parking lot, and we're walking toward the field, and I could hear the national anthem going. So my youngest, he's 12. He kept walking. I said, "Stop. So we stopped. He looked at me. He understood. He didn't hear it at first. So I stood there while the national anthem was going. You wouldn't believe how many people
Just kept walking?
didn't stop. They kept walking. There were people talking on their phones. Like, years ago, if you did that, your dad came with a hand to the back of the head. Like, you stop the national anthem song. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
My grandpa would have kicked my ass to China, and he would not have come and got me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it. I mean, people talking on their phones. Like it's nothing's going on. You're just like,
why am I saying
take your 30 seconds and stop for a second, and then go back on and do your thing. But yeah, it was.
You know, all those people, they should go to a communist country, right?
Oh,
Put them there for a
they'll
month.
shoot them. They'll shoot them if they.
And if you do make it back,
and
if you do make it back, I bet you listen.
Bet you do too. My dad used to stop the car and we would get out. You know, he would step out of the car and stand at attention if we drove past the national anthem. And I remember on the military base, whenever they played taps or whenever the flag was in the morning or when they were bringing it down, everybody stopped their car. Everybody saluted. You got out of your car, you saluted. I mean, you know, it was an interesting thing. But you're right, Tommy. You know, put their butts in a...
Put them over there.
And put them over there and go, how do you like it now? Yeah. You know, it's funny, the girl, forgive me, I can't remember, the basketball player that's in Russia, right? Well, a staff member of ours went to school with her. And when she got thrown in prison in Russia, which is pretty socialist, actually, they haven't really changed a lot, she said... Well, I guess and by the way, just so you know, this basketball player was a big liberal socialist, from what I understand from one of her classmates who sworn to our staff. She goes, well, I guess she's getting a taste of what she believed in. You know, and there you have it. No freedom. I mean, and that's the socialist system. It's like, you're in prison. I'm sure she didn't get a fair trial. I don't think that was the case of it. She just basically, the Russian government probably said...
Just threw her in there to say a few to us.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, we're going to set an example.
But I bet you I bet you when she gets back here, if she does, she'll get back here. But when she does, I bet you she'll be standing.
Dennis Rodman.
Who knows?
Get her.
Yeah, Dennis.
Oh, man. He's going to try to go get her.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
Oh, Dennis. Oh, wow. Good luck with that. He was actually on our show, the second season of... a show that I was a writer on called Soldiers of Fortune.
Oh, yeah.
They brought Dennis Rodman on. I don't know who's Yankee. It was the beginning of woke, I'll tell you. They're like, we're going to bring him on the TV show because there was money. Whole thing bombed.
Did it?
Like, he couldn't even speak. He's like, you know,
He's an interesting man, though. To say that,
I hear.
Least, you know, to go with Kim Jong-un and just be able to actually talk with him, like crazy.
Well, we don't know what he talked about, right?
Correct. We don't know what he talked about.
Yeah.
Well,
we know Jung is kind of starstruck too.
Correct.
I think any Hollywood actor could probably go over there and he'd could buddy up to him.
And here you got a guy that played with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson.
I could probably try a blacklist thing too. I bet you would take me too. I'd be like, let me go over and sit with you.
Speaking of the blacklist,
yeah,
I was going to ask you one more thing, but I'll go
segue.
back to it later. I have it there. So how did the blacklist? How did this happen? Because this is some serious shit.
Yeah, that was a great ride.
Look. Man, you are one. I watched every one of these. Every one of them.
That's my good buddy, Thad Turner, former Navy SEAL Team 2, behind me there. That's James Spader, great guy.
Yeah, how is he in person?
He was wonderful. What a professional.
Perfect for the role.
He was very gracious, taught me a lot, was very generous.
How'd you get the gig?
You know,
A to Z. How'd you get the gig?
That's a 1911, by the way. That's what I was using there. So John Bokenkamp, he's one of the creators and writers, and there were a lot of good writing teams. And, of course, the cast was stacked really well. Everybody was done well. But the hero in all of this was the executive producer and sometimes director Michael Watkins. Just love him to death. So Watkins calls me up one day. We call him M4. Now, get this. You're going to love this. So Michael Watkins is the only cameraman director that I ever know that got his own battle gear and literally went in the trenches of Afghanistan to film a documentary before it was ever being done by himself. Wow. I was supposed to go with him, and I couldn't because we were running a rescue operation, and he went on his own.
Balls.
And his wife, like, will you make sure you bring his body back? And I said, well, I have to go get it. So anyway, great guy. Anyway,
So you had known him prior to
I had known him
Blacklist.
prior, yeah.
Oh,
on a
okay.
few other things.
Okay.
He
So
was
you had a little
actually-
bit of an in.
He had actually been a director on the CBS show The Agency.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're on
Yeah.
the agency. Yeah, he was on the CBS show
Oh my
Agency.
God.
Yeah, wait till you see his credits when we're done with the
Yeah,
blacklist.
Yeah,
We're on the blacklist. Then when you see his credits, you'll be here for an hour going through it.
yeah. All right.
So Watkins calls me up and he says, hey, he goes, I'm shooting this new show. He goes, it was falling apart. I got called in. I'm EP. It's called The Blacklist. And he goes, and I'm like, okay, well, what's it about? And he goes, well, I don't have time to tell you about it. He goes, but I got this scene, and I need somebody to come in and show us how to take down a warehouse that the main character, James Spader, may have been captured in. Can you do that? And I said, well, sure. He says, yeah, I got a bunch of stuntmen that probably need trained up. And I said, well, what if I just bring in some real former CIA guys? And he goes, like, what do you mean bring them in? I said, like you could fly him in. I said, then we could shoot this in probably 1 or 2 takes. And he says, absolutely. He goes, where are they? I go, well, I got one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. I got this other guy here and here and here. I said, so I got about like 4 or 5 of them. I said, would you be willing to, look, you don't have to pay anybody. Just fly them in and feed them. And he said, absolutely.
Wow.
So he flies my guys in, right? John Herms was there and that and a few other guys. So anyway, we get in there and Michael was just so gracious. He was shooting in the morning and he said, look, I want you to go. He knew I had some experience. He goes, I want you to go out and lay out the scene and we'll shoot after lunch. So I go over with a location guy and I just take pictures of everything and I put them on the wall. And so in lunch break, I go, okay, here we go. Here's all your shots. Here's what we'll do. This is where we're going to move, blah, blah, blah. You set cameras here, blah, blah, blah. And he's got a camera drone too, which is really cool. And he goes, okay, let's shoot it. So we shoot this thing, right? And we do it like in 3 takes, and it turns out great. I go away. About a week later, Michael calls me back up, and he goes, NBC saw you in the editing bay on that scene, and they want to know, do you want to come back and be a co-star on the show as the head of Red Ranch Mercenary Army?
Did you fall over?
Yeah, I just said, I don't have to say anything, do I? He starts laughing. He says, well, I don't know what you'll have to say. He goes, but are you interested? And I said, yeah. I said, if it doesn't interfere with me rescuing kids. And he goes, I'll make sure it doesn't. He goes, most of the time,
cool.
he says, we'll
So
see if I can fly you in on a Thursday, shoot Friday, and have you out on Saturday, or maybe you'll be here for a week at the longest. And he says, but I'll work with you. And he did. He worked the schedule. It was great. And next thing I know, I'm on for 4 seasons and got the opportunity to, work with James Spader and
Red Reddington.
Yeah, Red Reddington. And,
Yeah.
and what's so funny is, he's always going after the cabal. And what's so funny is everything Trump was experiencing at the same time was kind of like, it's kind of like Red Reddington. I know, James, if you're listening to this, you probably, I don't know if you're Democrat or Republican, so don't hate me with this because I love you to death. But
I don't care what you are. I love you, Dad.
yeah, but it's kind of like Red Reddington was the Donald Trump.
Yeah, kind of.
It's
yeah.
like, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going after the cabal. And every time we would shoot a scene, I would think about, this criminal who's saving the world because he knows where all the bad guys are. And I thought, wow, this is great. So it was a perfect role for him. And he was probably, outside of, I have a good friend, Sam Elliott, who you've known for, he's always a cowboy and stuff.
Yeah.
But outside of Sam and a few other actors, James was right up there as far as his ability to, carry out his craft.
He was a monster on that show, and the black guy too. The black guy was a monster. Too.
Dimbe?
Yeah, Dimbe.
Yeah,
He was really good.
Yeah, he was good. Keyshawn was his real name, and Keyshawn was a former Marine. He was also a New York firefighter.
Really? Wow.
And his father actually was Malcolm X's right-hand man.
Holy shit.
And his father, according to my conversation with Keyshawn, was that his father was actually assassinated by a number of people because he was breaking ties with Malcolm X because he no longer believed in Keyshawn, forgive me if I have this story wrong, if you're listening, but I think he said that Malcolm X was leaning left a lot, and that his father didn't believe in that, and his father was
Became a
eventually
problem.
Yeah, it became a problem. So he was great to work with. Loved him to death. I always hoped that there would have been a show with him and I,
Yeah.
together, just going out and doing something. We talked about it funny times, but he was brilliant. Everybody on there, the cast they were all just wonderful people to me. Susan, would you remember Mr. Kaplan?
Yep.
Loved that lady to death.
Yeah.
Oh
Very
my
good.
gosh,
Very,
love her.
very good
She
role.
used to. We'd walk in. She had so much respect for us as veterans. When she would be on set, we'd walk up and she just give us a big old warm hug and go, "I am so glad you guys are here. Thank you, thank you." Thank
Watching it, sometimes you're like, "You idiot! You idiot! What are you doing? What are you doing with this idiot? He's setting you up." You remember
Yeah.
watching that, Rob?
You know, the problem with me is when I watch these shows, I get into them, and I did get into Blacklist, and then when I miss them, forget about it. Because then I'm so busy working, and then I
Yeah.
don't go back to it. But yes, I do remember Blacklist.
When you do a show like that,
Yeah.
is it like a movie where you're taking take after take after take, or it's one or two takes and it's done?
Yeah, it depends on who's directing. If you got a really skilled director, they
Like
may,
the Blacklist. for
yeah,
example.
like when Michael was, he was not only EP, but when he was directing, I've seen him get a scene in one take.
Wow.
And sometimes two or three, but he was all about business. He understands that people have families, and they want to go home at the end of the day. And being on set it's very long. I mean, you show up sometimes at 6 a.m, and you don't get a break. You get one lunch break, and that's sometimes only 45 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, and then you're back on set, and you're shooting till maybe 1,800 hours. So I mean, it's just nonstop and focus. So I don't,
When you're doing a weekly show
Yeah.
like that, like especially I call him Red.
Yeah.
And he's got that huge part. He doesn't memorize all that.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
The entire thing for
Yeah.
that show.
Yeah, he gets his script sent to him. The pages sometimes change in the middle of the script, can change at the last moment, but he's responsible for knowing it. And I've watched him. I don't recall ever watching him sit in his chair with the script.
Damn.
He just, we have someone that kind of manages the script and can, if you forget what your line is, script coordinator, you'll go line and they'll help you with that. But I honestly don't remember ever, not that he did, I just don't remember ever seeing him come in and not be able to spit out.
I was just curious
Like
if
verbatim.
they do if you're taking, say, take 4 for the day. Okay, here's a script. Quick, memorize it. Do the take. Okay, here, look at the paper again in
No, I
15
never saw
minutes.
him do that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, because he would go, and he may have gone back to his room and may have looked at stuff.
Oh,
I'm sure
even
as
that.
we all did.
Yeah.
But I remember watching him do a monologue one time that was easily 20 minutes. I mean, it was just, I was like, how in the world did he learn all of that,
That's what I was asking, because when I was watching it, now that we edit and do that stuff,
Yeah.
you could tell when there's a cut or a switch frame,
Mhm.
and if many times it was 10, 15 minutes straight where there was no clip,
Yeah.
no change of scene.
Well, think about this. If he's doing 15 minutes, and you got to set the cameras up at a different angle, because you got to reverse,
right.
sometime on the person he's speaking to. He's got to go through all that all over again, because he's now sharing dialogue or having a moment with that person. He's still saying the same thing. So it's not about acting as much as it is, I believe, reacting to what the scene is or what the other person is saying and everything. Or so I learned it from a very well-known female actress isn't any longer with us. But yeah, he was pretty amazing. In fact, I think they were all good,
And then a series like that you're doing,
Right.
So say the series 1, it ends. Do you
Mhm.
guys start right back up on 2?
Yeah.
Like series 1 is that you're right up on 2.
Yeah,
And
you
then
may
how-
go
how long does that
14
take?
days, and then you're, maybe you get a break, and then like a day break or whatever, and you're back on the next episode.
And then how long does it take to, like with the Blacklist, what were they, 10 each series? 10 shows a series? Or 8 maybe?
Yeah, I don't remember, to be honest with you.
How long did each series take to complete? Do you
You're
remember?
talking about from the time you shoot it to the time it's edited?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Michael probably would, and other people. I didn't pay much attention to that, but it's got to be shot. It's got you got to get everything in the can. Then you got to it's got to go to the editing bay, and those guys have to edit it. And the director gets the director's cut. So right after you shoot, the director's in the editing bay because it's his episode, so he's got to make sure, along with the editors, that it's his vision and whatever he was trying to do. So it's a little bit of work.
Before the editing, though, just the shooting, how long does that take? Like when you like
Depends
the
on
series,
the episode. If you mean if you don't get up early, let's see. I remember we've shot for 7 days. I remember shooting on some other stuff. It was like 14-day shoot. But I generally speaking, it's about a week long, you know, if I recall correctly.
Wow. That's congratulations.
Yeah, you would go like Monday, and then we'd end up like early Saturday, and then maybe shoot 2 more days after that. It just depends.
Because I remember The Sopranos when I was a kid, right? And the lady I worked for, my boss, actually, she liked The Sopranos.
Yeah.
So I could get the seasons earlier. So I would give her one episode at a time, so I could leave all day and go to the gym and do whatever, and she would look the other way. She was an Italian lady. She didn't care. You know, she just wanted her little. She wanted to tell everybody that she got the new season. You know,
that's
it was big. So that's why I asked that. So that they started right away, and then I was wondering how long it takes to shoot the season. I know you got to edit it, but I was wondering like how long, if you do, say 8 episodes, how long that actually takes to do.
Yeah, that's probably a question better for the executive producers and the guys that actually shoot it. As an actor on there, you know, it's like
you come in, do your shit, and you're out, right?
Well, kind of, to be honest with you, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had, I'm sure there are moments. I'm sure if that time ever comes in the future where I'm like, you know, the executive producer, I'll pay more attention to it. But yeah, I just want to get in and do myself. Kind of like CIA, just a specialist. Like, okay, you're a sniper. You have one job. We're dropping you in. Take out your target. We're picking you up. That's all you need to worry about, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Pull up all the credits. All right, look at all these, man. Wow. Avenger. The Closer, The Company, Jake 2.0, Combat Missions, The Agency, CPS, The Legend, Nowhere Man, The Kobe Rubin Story. Scroll down through all these, Rob. Phew. How was The Analyst? Did you enjoy that?
What's that?
Did you enjoy The Analyst?
Go up. Where are we at?
The show.
The agency, you mean?
No, the Analyst.
Agency.
The agency.
Yeah, shit. Agency.
That's kind of like Analyst. The agency was great. We talked a little bit about
It's
that.
only there in bold letters. Yeah.
That's okay.
I was looking at Analyst over there on the right-hand side like a moron. Look at all that War on Terror. Damn, boss.
These are all the shows you were on too. Like,
Yeah.
looks like, oh wow. Yeah, you get a lot there. Now, do you get a vote for an Emmy? Is that right? Are you?
No,
No,
I didn't. I don't think I was ever put in for one.
But do you get a chance to vote, you yourself?
I do, yeah, with
Yeah,
Screen
right.
Actors Guild,
Right,
yeah,
correct, yeah.
and Writers Guild, yeah.
That's kind of cool, actually. So he gets to vote for the Emmys.
That is cool.
Right, that's pretty neat. Wow, how many episodes of The Blacklist? Holy crap, a lot.
Wow.
A few.
Just a few.
And then you got radio, print, Spy, New Man Magazine, music. And then you got into, before this, you got into martial arts. And I can't even say what you did.
Yeah.
I have it here. Aikido.
Aikido?
What the hell is
Aikido.
that? Do you know what that is?
I've
Yeah.
heard of it.
What do you think it is? It's got to be some type
something
of
with your
jitsu.
hands.
Jitsu?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not gonna try.
Yeah.
Probably a new way to kill somebody. I don't know. Fuck.
It's Japanese, and it actually is. It's the art of hand-to-hand combat, basically, for the samurai if they lost their battle tools, their sword or whatever.
Very
It's been
cool.
around for a long time. It's actually what Steven Seagal practices. He's a sensei for that. So you've seen him in
Yeah.
action. That's what it is. I was blessed enough to be a part of an amazing, the Humbo, which is the headquarters for the Budo Yosekan Federation, which is in Torrance, California. Sensei Ajay.
Aikido, is that where you can take your palm and just knock somebody out with your palm?
You could probably do it with that can of Monster right there, too.
Well, yeah. I meant like the actual, not us in the
you know what?
street.
It's interesting. It's mostly a process of off balancing, and the transfer of energy in a direction or opposite direction or whatever it may be.
Wherever you want the
So-
power to go to.
Pretty much so. I think it's a great way of helping people understand it. Google probably has a better definition for it. I've studied for about, 30 years.
Wow.
Wow,
You know,
congratulations.
not a long time. I still need to be studying. I'm no longer, because I live in Colorado, the dojo, which I loved, is actually in Torrance, California. So any training that I do now, I have to do virtually, or instead of finding another Aikido dojo. I could start a study group, which would be me basically encouraging others to train with me to some degree. But yeah, it was great. It was a great part of my life,
Congratulations.
and I love it. And it was great. And
Another thing
If
that was,
Well, I was just gonna say,
You know?
if we didn't know this already from the beginning, just don't fuck with this guy.
yeah,
If you're at a bar, you're not fucking.
yeah.
You're not fucking with
Yeah.
this guy.
Him and Rick have that stamp.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with me.
Correct.
so,
I forgot to ask you
Yeah.
one thing about Blacklist.
yeah,
They had said that it was based on Whitey Bulger, partially based on Whitey Bulger.
really.
Yeah,
You're talking about
the Blacklist. Like I
Really?
guess, yeah.
Who said that? Do you remember?
Google, yeah.
okay. That I didn't know. I didn't help create the show.
Yeah, Rob, go to
But that's
Google
interesting.
and type in Blacklist. Yeah, they said it was partially based on Whitey Bulger.
Okay.
And I don't see how that Blacklist. Oh, yeah, do it like that, yeah. The Blacklist was originally inspired
Inspired.
by my boss, Whitey Bulger.
Wow.
Click right there. There's the Blacklist right there. Following the screening, producers revealed that their inspiration for the show came right around the time Whitey Bulger had been captured. Bulger is a Boston crime figure. Everybody knows who he is. Yeah, I just,
Dedicated to protecting his neighbor and his resident. Well, they could take the idea and run with it.
I guess kind of. I just didn't see it.
I didn't either. I didn't never talk about it on set, but
And you were in it. But,
Yeah,
I'm
was
saying
in
when
it.
I was watching it, I didn't see anything really like Whitey Bulger did.
well, maybe it was the whole idea of protecting
Yeah.
the country or protecting your neighbors, or
I don't know. It was a great show, so who
It was
cares?
great. It's still entertaining even when we watch it now. It's like, hey, that was fun. I don't remember that, So
And then you got into speaking,
got into speaking.
and this is a great
yeah.
thing that you do, life coach.
I do life coaching, yeah, and we stay kind of busy with that. It's I got to a point where I realized, my father was this amazing life coach. He just provided guidance to me and my sister and my friends, and everybody was coming to my dad. And I grew up in a family, and being an Italian family, you probably might have grown up like this as well, where we sat at the foot of my grandfather after dinner, and he would tell stories or give guidance, or
Oh yeah.
it's like
I looked at it
yeah.
as a damn lecture, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and after a while, I started seeing the wisdom, and I did
Yeah.
too as a kid. And so I started seeing the wisdom in it, and it was like, wait a minute, you just helped me navigate a lot of fault lines in life. And then I went to the Citadel and got more of it, and as in the Marine Corps, and then life experience, and all of a sudden I had people that started coming to me that I ended up mentoring, younger men mostly, and the advice I was giving them was working for them, and one thing led to another, and the next thing I know, a buddy of mine said, so you're life coaching, and I was like, what? He goes, you're life coaching. He goes, you're giving better advice than they're going to get from their own home most of the time. And so I opened this up to help a lot of people, and it's worked out really well. You get all kinds of calls, mostly from people that can't get guidance or advice. Like, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you that matters. And sometimes just that statement alone opens up the door so they don't commit suicide.
yeah.
My
My buddy was a Marine. He committed suicide.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And what had happened was, because of all this shit, they cut his. Remember I told you I had the engineering firm?
Right.
He was my main guy.
Oh, wow.
And when I closed it, we still stayed close. When he was in the Cold War, and he was a captain, and he lost one of his soldiers, and the other 3 guys, it was him and 4 guys. He lost one. He was the captain, and he wanted to go back and get the soldier that they lost. But if they would have went back, they all would have died.
Yeah.
So he had to leave, and he never got over it. From the day I met him, I could see it in his eyes. He never got over it.
Yeah.
He came home. He was so fucked up over it. Walked in the house. His wife is in the shower. he thinks just in his mind that she's in the shower with a guy. Starts just
Shoot
blasting the house. Not her,
Oh,
just
yeah.
shooting the house up.
Yeah.
You know, didn't hit her or anything. But then, you know, he got over that thing or whatever, stayed busy, VA, had overtime at the VA, then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And they took his overtime. And when they took his overtime at the VA, because that was his home to be like with his brothers,
Mhm.
when they took that overtime from him and he felt like his wife was going to have to go get another job, that was it.
Wow.
I had talked to him. He's like, I did this, I did that. And I was like, just stay where you're at. Just stay where you're at. Next day,
I'm
That
so sorry to hear
gone.
that.
Kept trying to call back.
Did they have him on meds and stuff?
Well, he was on vodka. That was his medicine pretty much.
A lot of guys that happens, and it's the one thing fortunately we have a method now. What's interesting, we have a protocol we use, and we use it for our trauma victims for sex trafficking, and it's about 98% successful every single time. Every single time. It doesn't work. The 2% that doesn't work is when there's a drug addiction because there's a chemical dependence. But when it comes to PTSD and stuff, and I've used it on a number of my buddies who are veterans that were suicidal, they're fine now and everything. So the VA actually, I had a talk with somebody at the VA also, and they were interested in the program, what we were doing. Never knew what happened with it after I turned it over to them. We just never heard anything after that. You know, I don't know if they're using it or not using it. But they're, you know, for everybody that's listening, if you're a vet, there are better ways than just drugs. My buddy, who was a former SEAL, he lost one of his buddies in the chopper that went down in Kandahar, and he never got over it. And by the time he got to me, it was on the recommendation of a lot of other of his friends. I had him for 2 days, and at the end of the 2 days, everything was better than it had ever been before. So there are ways out there. So if you're listening to this and you're going down that road, call me, call me. And in between my operations, I'd be more than happy to help.
And we'll have all this in the description so that, it's there anytime
Yeah.
anybody wants to go to it. So a year from now that this video will be up, you can always go to it because that's another thing that they don't pay any attention to.
Yeah, that's
true. They don't do shit.
Yeah.
They just blow it under the rug.
Well, hey, I like the VA's been good to me at times, and then sometimes they've been rotten. I mean, I went through a deal where I was dealing with an issue. I walked in, and they basically said, "You're never going to be able to do this. You're never going to be able to do this, and we can't do anything for you." And I had to seek alternatives that proved them absolutely wrong. It's not about dispensing pills. They don't always get it right, and so we have some improvements, that we need to make around our own VA program, to be honest with you.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Happy to hear that.
So,
and last question before
Sure.
I drive you nuts.
that's all right.
All right. So the drones and the UFO bullshit.
Ah!
Are they drones or UFOs? What do you think? I'm confused. I've had Jet Pilot in here said there's no way it's a drone. Too much G-force. Rick thinks it's a drone, right? Rick thinks it's a drone.
Yeah,
Andrew thinks it's a
government.
drone. I mean, they both think there's UFOs.
Well, Rick
but-
thinks Elvis Presley's still alive.
Yeah.
You heard that, Rick. All right, buddy.
What do you think it is?
I've had some pretty compelling information from my wife, who's kind of a quantum science kind of person.
Love this shit. Don't get me started.
yeah.
Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
That's Bob Lazar right here.
There you go. And she, I listened to her, and she's convinced that they're aliens or the unidentified flying objects. I know that from my experience, there's always been something advanced that we're not aware of because maybe it's held as classified. But I saw the lights over Phoenix that time, those objects, and when they left, I've never seen anything leave that fast. So, in my limited knowledge of G-force and all that, I just don't know how anybody could withstand that. So I think there are angelic beings. I think there are God things. I think there's sightings that they may They might be extraterrestrial. They could be heavenly bodies. They could be something that's beyond us like that. I've never seen an alien. And so I've learned over the course of time not to dispose of anything just because I haven't seen it. For example, I can't see air. But
Right.
I breathe, right? So, you know, it's kind of like people that go, well, I don't believe in God. Well, it's like, God didn't need your belief or disbelief in order to exist. I mean, you're a fool. Come on, you know? So I can't see that either. And there's a lot of things. So I haven't seen aliens, but doesn't mean that they can't.
So
I've never found anything in the agency, though. And I did
Never?
ask. No,
Fuck.
and Rick maybe, I mean, I asked questions to the science and technology guys before, and maybe they weren't allowed to reveal it. But at that time, they just kind of laughed it off and said, no, you know, we don't have that technology, and we've never discovered any aliens. There's no secret. But that doesn't mean that.
What do you
tell them the
think,
truth.
though? What do you think? What does Baz think?
Wow. That's a good question. I think anything is possible. I don't think the question is, are there aliens? I think the question more is like, what do we do if there are aliens? You know, so how does it affect us? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I think, you know, there's things in the ocean we haven't even discovered yet.
Yeah.
So I know what I saw over Phoenix. It was enough to make me think that there's something
Technology seemed
space-wise.
to take off really quick.
It does, and, you know, and
I mean, like, too quick.
incredibly quick.
So
You know?
that kind of seems like some type of reverse engineering. Like maybe got part of it, you know?
Could be. I never got. I only went to Area 51 once. I didn't see any.
You went to Area 51?
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
Went there to see a Hind helicopter. You know, we had we put enough money out for the Russians, someone to defect, and they did, and they brought a Hind helicopter. It was during the first invasion of Afghanistan when the Russians invaded. And there was a gun system on there that we needed to understand, and we needed to understand a lot about it. So we had one, and we went to Area 51 and took a look at it, climbed all over it, you know.
Is that security beyond security?
You know, I went there with another agency guy. We didn't have a problem.
Well, I guess not.
Yeah.
If me and Rob try to go there, we're getting
Yeah.
bad.
might have a
We're
problem,
gonna
yeah.
have some bullet holes.
Yeah, we had clearance. I mean, we went and we just went in there. We didn't go all over the place. We went and did what we were supposed to do, and then we left. That was kind of about it. You know,
Still,
It
you
was
got to stay right there.
Well, it was cool because I'd never
Fuck.
been on a Hind helicopter before, and it was
Yeah.
like, and we had like the first ones that anybody had seen. So, excuse me. So that was kind of cool. You know, it's kind of like looking at a UFO, maybe. I don't know,
It's the.
but I didn't see anything else.
I think this year is the 40th anniversary of E.T. the
Is it?
movie. It's like
Yeah, that was a cool show.
that's one of my
wasn't it?
favorite movies. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
One of mine too. I liked it.
Love-
I love these.
It was good.
It
Yeah.
was the best.
It
was
Every,
good.
every kid.
Although
when
my
it came out,
kids dread it when we go to Universal Studios. They have the ET ride. It's
Yeah.
the oldest ride there, and it's
Yeah.
you could tell, but it's you go on the little bike when they're ET
Yeah.
flying, and they're like, "Dad, do we really have to?"
yeah,
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
we
good.
do.
Well, you know what was good about that? Those were in times, and that was probably some of the times we didn't see anymore. They were making, Hollywood was making some wholesome stuff. I think that was
Yeah.
a Spielberg thing,
Yeah,
right?
Spielberg.
Yeah, they were making some wholesome stuff. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about that now.
No.
You know, when we look at the influence of, like, shooters, so to speak, like kids that, you know, and we look at their influence, they're in on video games, like
Yep.
Call of Duty and all that. So they get so desensitized to human life, and they get so brainwashed and programmed
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
that when they go to do a bad deed, they shoot them up. You know, they get themselves on a weapon. You know, and look, you can get a weapon anywhere, and even if you
That's the funniest
even
thing.
if you
If-
outlawed any weapon in the world, the black market, you
Yeah.
can't stop it, because guess what? Are we stopping drugs from the black market?
No.
No.
Are we stopping anything from the black market? No.
No.
And we don't have control of it. So just because you make a law
It doesn't mean shit.
doesn't mean anything.
If you want a gun, you're going to go get a gun. That's just the way it
and if
fuck
you don't have a
is.
gun, you'll get a knife, you'll get a baseball bat,
Something.
you'll get a...
And now
so
they can
the
print guns.
yeah.
Too. They can 3D print.
Oh,
of
yeah,
course.
Yeah.
So the problem isn't the gun. The problem is, why are people killing people? And if we address that,
Mental health, a lot of.
it's mental health, right? So coming out of the CIA and understanding a lot about the brain and programming. I think there's a lot of officers and the agency that understand you can just about program anybody to do anything. And with the technology we have now, you can do that and you can trigger them. They go, what's the Manchurian candidate? It's like, yeah, absolutely. Pretty much anything Hollywood writes about is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Hollywood, it's interesting, I got attached to an organization of movie makers, where the government sent people from all the agencies in the government. They'd send half the class was those people, and the other half were writers and producers. And together we would get together to do predictable outcomes. And interesting. And we came up with scenarios based on creative thinking. That was what it was about. Like, what would happen here? How could this take place?
Well, what happened with Back to the Future, too? There's no flying cars.
There you go. Exactly.
But we did get hoverboards, though.
Yeah.
No, we did get hoverboards.
We did get
And
hoverboards.
they work. We really have them now.
And the
They're
shoes.
cool. I can't wait to get on one. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I've seen them.
That's
And the
incredible.
shoes that.
Oh,
lace
yeah, and the
up.
shoes. They got the
do that.
Nikes
Oh,
that
the
lace
shoes,
up.
that's right.
So part of it's there. You
Part of
know.
it is there.
And
so
you know the rest of the shit's coming. It's just,
it's just a matter.
it's just Doc was a little bit off on the date. That's all.
Exactly.
You know?
So we just have to ask ourselves, where do we want to be in all of this? You know,
Yeah.
when it all comes, or when that time comes, for whatever. But yeah, it's all coming and everything. So anyway.
Oh, yeah. What is your dad as a Green Beret?
Yeah.
What does he think about this shit? He's got to be like, what the hell?
My dad is very outspoken. So he is one of 12 kids
Whoa.
whose father came here in 1914. My grandfather, who was Druze, and married my grandmother, who was Wakama, Native American. And he came into a country where his grandfather said, you will speak English. This is America. You will salute the flag. You will learn the Pledge of Allegiance, and you will learn the Constitution of the United States, because we have freedoms here that we never had in our country.
Very cool.
You will be an American. And my father grew up thinking, well, can I ever go back to the old country? That's what they call it. You know, you've heard
Yeah,
that in Italy.
the old country.
And my grandfather said, absolutely not. There's nothing for you. All they do is fight, and they kill. That's all I came from, because he fought against the Ottoman Empire. And he said, this is America, and you will be an American. And so my father grew up very patriotic. I mean, and he grew up in Georgetown, South Carolina, which was an old American Revolution town, where George Washington and, of course, the Swamp Fox, which the movie Mel Gibson made, The Patriot.
The Patriot, yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he grew up around that. And I got a chance to grow up around that as well. So we learned a lot about the founding of the country. My mother's side, we're all part of the Daughters of the American Revolution. They came from the Lamberts, who came from Scotland, who fought in the war. So, you know, this permeated our life. And my father is one who's very direct, and he's very no nonsense. And so he thinks that bad guys should be put away. He thinks corruption should be ended with an iron fist. And he cuts no slack in his dialogue when it comes to who he likes and who he doesn't like.
That sounds
And
like my
I'm gonna
dad.
tell you, yeah. So he doesn't he doesn't like this administration, and he calls them for what they are. And he even goes further to say, if they come knock on my door, it'll be the last day of my life. So, and it's like, Dad, you know, you got to be careful. Somebody hears that. He goes, what do I got to lose? He goes, what are you going to do? Send me back to Vietnam, Korea? He goes, you know, he goes, I spent my whole life trying not to come home in a body bag. He goes, I have no problem being put in a body bag in America. He goes, so you know what? He goes, that's right and that's wrong. And he goes, they want to come here, bring it on. He goes, because I'm ready, and I'm ready to go the way I want to go. That's the kind of guy he is.
And with that, damn, that's a good way to cut it out. All right, Baz, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, Tom.
I hope you come back again.
Anytime you
guys have a
invite,
good time.
our door is always welcome to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
What an honor to meet you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.